Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto was the strongest Hokage council bashing. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by bigdogneversleeps and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. There was a solemn silence over the room as they people entered. A few of the village's top jounin, such as Saratobi Asuma and Hada Kakashi entered. Also entering were all of the clan leaders of the village, from the Hyuga to the Akimichi to the lesser clans of Kishimoto and Tanizaki. Following them into the room was the members of the civilian council. Finally into the room lumbered in the Toad Sage Jiraiya, who was being exceptionally quiet. But all understood the reason for his silence and said nothing of it. Already in the room were the three elders who advised Saratobi personally, his teammates Hamura and Kaharu, and his rival Danzo. In the room, over 30 people gathered to make one of the hardest decisions of their life. Kaharu took lead once everyone was seated. Hello, fellow shinobi and consilmemers. As you all understand, today we called this meeting forward to try and decided who shall become the goddamn Hokage. She was interrupted by a loud sigh by one of the younger consilmemers. She turned her attention to him. Do you have something to say, Councilman Harada? Harada looked embarrassed but decided to say what he was thinking. Why can't this council simply run the village instead of electing a Kage? We in the civilian council run the affairs quite effectively in this format, so why shouldn't we run the village as such? Kaharu looked at the consilmemer almost pitifully. I am afraid you do not understand what exactly the Hokage does for this village, besides leads the shinobi, councillor. His role is much too intensive and demanding to be run by this council. Amura continued, the Hokage also assigns missions to all shinobi, must act as the commander of the shinobi in times of war, is the person who singularly represents this village to all other nations, and is the idol of our people. A council cannot replace that. The consilmemer began to slowly shake his head. If you say so, but why can't they simply be a figurehead and we have the control? Let them act the part while we do the hard work. Danzo raised his eyebrow at that thought, but no one noticed his reaction. They were more focused on Hamura. Your naivety continues to show, Harada. The Hokage makes some of the most difficult decisions possible for this village and often needs to be immediate actions. No meetings, no debates, no votes, but a split-second decision that can rest on his shoulders alone. The other Kages would smell blood if they realized that the Hokage was a facade. Kaharu finished up the discussion. And above that, the Hokage is a full-time position, and so would the council. It would be illogical to remove over 24 top shinobi from the field or away from the duties of their clan or you from your duties on the civilian council. A Hokage is the only option possible in this world we live in. As such, let us get down to business. It is now time for nominations to be made and deliberated. She looked over the large council. Now, are there any nominations to be made? I nominate Uzumaki Naruto to fill the position the goddamn Hokage. This one sentence stopped the council cold in its tracks, killing the discussion over whom to nominate before it began. It was not simply the person being nominated, but the man who was nominating him. A stunned silence took over the room as the word sunk in. After a minute of silence, a civilian consilmemer was the first to speak. You want the Kyuubi to run the village? People surrounding him began to nod. Another civilian consilmemer spoke up. Forget the demon in him, he's barely 13. How in the hell could he possibly be fit to lead a mission? Let alone a whole village. A third stood up and spoke. For God's sake, he is a genin. And barely one at that. Making him Hokage is insane. What are you thinking? Finally, a fourth consilmemer shook her head. Have you gone mad? The rest of the civilian consilmemer nodded in agreement to the final consilmemer, while the Jounin's clan heads and elders stayed silent as they tried to rationalize this nomination. Even Jiraiya was temporarily speechless at his student being nominated for the position he feared he would be stuck with. He quickly recovered, however, and spoke up. What are you playing at, Danzo? He eyed him suspiciously. Why would he nominate Naruto of all people? Everyone knew Danzo wished to be Hokage, it was not a secret to a person in the room, so why nominate someone else? Are you trying to weaken the field of candidates by making outlandish nominations so you may slip in as Hokage? Danzo, to his credit, did not flinch. He looked at Jiraiya with his unbandaged eye and smirked. That is an interesting thought, Gama-sanin, but it is not my intention. There is nothing outlandish in my words. I honestly nominate Uzumaki to be the next Hokage of this village. People were still trying to rationalize it when Nara Shikaku spoke up and asked the question everyone wondered. Why? Why him, Danzo? All eyes focused on Danzo as he was expected to explain. He acquiesced. To your point, Councilman Taniguchi, even you should realize he is no demon. He fought off the one-tailed Bushukaku with no hesitation instead of joining him in its destruction. He is simply its container, the force stopping the demon from destroying us. As long as he lives, the Kyuubi is held back. He is someone to be respected. The shinobi of the room were surprised at Danzo's words, as they did not think it fit his philosophy. Danzo continued to answer his critics. As for his age, I should say it does not matter in the grand scheme. The traitor Uchiha led Anbu at his age. Hada Kakashi was leading the first major strike of the Third Shinobi World War at that age. Why can't a 13-year-old be Hokage? Age is not what matters, but what one does. Finally, a tall Jounin interrupted him. They were prodigies, while Uzumaki was a dead last. If we use your logic, why don't we put Uchiha Sasuke as Hokage? He is a prodigy and has much talent already. Danzo waved him off. What do you call mastering the Jounin level technique Shadow Clone Jutsu by oneself within a space of a few hours? Or having the capabilities of eluding Archunin and Jounin at the age of 10 when he was playing his pranks? Or being able to summon the boss of the Toad contract on 2 separate occasions? His abilities are very raw, but we can develop them into the strongest shinobi the village and the whole world has ever seen and make him truly a great Hokage. A few, like Jiraiya, Shikaku, and Abiram Shibi, saw what was going on at that moment with a little slip of the tongue. Danzo knew he wasn't likely to be nominated, it was obvious that he had too many objections, and his controlling nature lent the fact that he was using a ninja he could manipulate to his will. Jiraiya spoke up again. Kakashi and I are training him currently and know him best. I think we can both safely say that he is not yet ready mentally to be Hokage. He is still too trusting and lacks many of the social graces needed to fill the position. It will take years before he can mentally perform the duties of Hokage, let alone be strong enough to be considered for the role. Kakashi gave a slight nod in admission. Danzo's gaze fell upon the Sannin and he looked back. Eventually, Danzo spoke. Maybe or maybe not. I think that much of the training needed could be accomplished within a short time if he were to realize the ability of the Shadow Clone Jutsu he uses so readily. One of the civilian council members was curious. What do you mean? Danzo sighed. It is a shame his progress has been limited by his senseis not showing him such. A clone will gain the memories of what they experienced. I assume the boy has not realized this yet since he uses them to overwhelm his enemies and let them be quickly defeated, thus gaining not enough experience to register in his mind. Kakashi was quick to defend himself. Well, this is true, I was worried about the side effects gaining knowledge in such a way. In a young teenager such as Naruto, his mind is still developing and thus could cause dangerous mental strain on him. No one Naruto's age, without years of conditioning to deal with such strain, had ever learned the Shadow Clone Jutsu and thus we would not know the effects it may have. Jiraiya nodded. I had similar fears. Also, my training with him has mainly dealt with individual chakra control and the summoning jutsu. Both required concentration and steady chakra, which would have been disrupted had he used shadow clones. Danzo appeared to ponder this for a moment and slowly began to nod. I see. Your fears, Kakashi, and your reasoning, Jiraiya, does make sense. However, I think it would be for the best for him to start training in such a manner so he will quickly live up to his title of Hokage. His strength could grow quickly and he could learn everything he needs to learn from the elite so that he may take the mantle of the Hokage. While we the Elder Council guide him, he can train his abilities to reach their full potential. A few ninjas began to suspect a political coup in the works when the council took over and had the Hokage in waiting never take charge. Or simply killed. Those who felt like that began to eye Danzo even more suspiciously. The civilian council members narrowed their eyes. Harada spoke up again. Why are you so sure we will allow such a thing? Even if you are right about his container status, he is too much of a risk mentally to hold such power, as his senseis have remarked. He is still only 13. At 13, I was not fit to lead my household, let alone the village. Could we please move on to a legitimate nomination if this council will not do? Danzo stared at the woman who just spoke. This is quite legitimate. I believe he is quite able to perform such tasks with the help of the council, the elders, and his senseis until he is independent enough. Finally Hyuga Hiyashi spoke. You mean you want a willing puppet and the boy who screams out that he will be Hokage is the perfect puppet to pull the strings with? And independent as long as he depends on your ideas. Many of the shinobi in the room began to nod, happy that the suspected truth was out in the open. Danzo looked at the Hyuga clan head. I will admit I want to influence the decisions of our village, but only for the best. I wish to seek the survival of Konohagakure, and this boy has shown a willingness to protect the entirety of the village, which I respect tremendously. He turned his attention to the entirety of the council. Honestly, I wish nothing more to lead my village to glory. But many accuse me of being a warhawk and thus unfit to rule a peaceful village. Yes, a peaceful village that just was invaded. And others say my physical capabilities show weakness. While I disagree vehemently against the first charge, in light of recent events, I respect the logic of the second tremendously. If the Hokage is not fit, then how can one suspect its village to be so? So, I am doing the next best thing, and putting someone who I think would be able to do whatever is needed for the village to succeed is just that. He has the power of the most powerful force in the world within him and will be able to defend his village with that power. If you think about it, he is perfect for the role. He is young, malleable enough to train properly, fiercely loyal, powerful, and has the desire to prove himself. He is not the right choice for today, but if we let him grow into the role, he will be the perfect choice to rule the village. We will groom him as such. And if he is somehow too weak to be the hokage this village needs when it is time, he will be weak enough to remove from office and replace with a worthy shinobi. It is a win-win situation for the village. Many looked at the man with great suspicion, but unsure of how to best counter his still far-fetched claims. A concealmer was the first to try. Would it not be safer to have a strong hokage now, instead of hoping to have one in the future? Danzo shook his head. We must look at the future for the role of hokage. A good hokage no means nothing if they pass on in a few years, and we must begin the search all over again. And though the hokage will not be strong, this council will help lead the way until the day he becomes strong. The clan head of one of the minor clans spoke up next. Why not choose another strong young shinobi then? If you must seek from the youth, why not at the Nara heir, who was the only one fit to become a chunin? Or Uchiha Sasuke, who is beloved and strong already? Nara Shikaku, shockingly, spoke up. My son would never take the role. He would see it as too troublesome. And the Uchiha he stopped, trying to think how to best phrase this. He is very much like Danzo here, a great warrior in mind, but lacking in some area to take the role. Danzo lacks an image, the Uchiha lacks in his vengeance. We all know of how his clan was massacred and how he wishes to kill his brother who did it. Until that day occurs, his focus will be on that goal. He would focus the powers of the Hokage against that one man and could potentially destroy his village. And afterwards, if he beats his brother, he wishes to resurrect the Uchiha clan and become its head. He will not be in the right place mentally to be Hokage. No, the Uchiha can never take the mantle. Danzo spoke up. Very few want to be Hokage. The hat is quite heavy, the pressure too much for many. In this village, I know of only 3 people who would earnestly want this job. Myself, which cannot come to pass, the grandson of the Sandrine, who has not even entered the academy, or Uzumaki Naruto. By default, he can be the only one that takes up its mantle. Hyuga Hiashi rose up. I would be willing to take the mantle. Do not think so quickly that only the loudest want to lead. And I am sure other worthy shinobi would as well. Slowly, he gestured to the crowd, waiting for another champion to stand up. He stared at a few he thought that would. Jiraiya shook his head. I was never meant for that chair, and I am too vital for our spy networks to run the office. Nara Shikaku began to shake his head. The paperwork way too troublesome. And I doubt many would want a Hokage who is afraid of his wife. A few chuckled at the comment, as they knew of Yoshino's temper and Shikaku's concern. Hada Kakashi shook his head. I do not want this job. I saw what it comprised of with sensei, and it really isn't my cup of tea. Finally, Saratobi Asuma shook his head. Dad once told me that I shouldn't be Hokage, that I am too important as a member of Konoha to coup myself up into that tower. Hyuga Hiashi nearly growled at his failure, but did not show his displeasure. He saw an opening. Asuma-sen has accidentally risen a valid point. Uzumaki knows not enough about the world of shinobi to lead a village. He is too ignorant of this world to lead it. Danzo just stared at the Hyuga. He can be taught. And what is so bad at not knowing the evils of the job? It may help him keep a clearer conscience when he sends someone to their deaths for the good of the village. There was a hush over the room as they mulled over this. Danzo decided to go for the kill. Finally, Uzumaki Naruto is perfect for the role of Hokage since he has the heritage to back up such a task. Jiraiya and Kakashi both opened their eyes widely as they heard Danzo subtly hint at who Naruto's parents were. Before they could stop the ball from rolling, the Akimichi clan head spoke up. What do you mean his heritage? Uzumaki was orphaned at birth and chosen for the sealing process since no one knew who his parents were. And if they have survived, no one claimed him as their son. Danzo smirked. I believe Jiraiya is most suited to announce this, wouldn't you say? Jiraiya glared back at him. It was meant to stay a secret until he was ready, Danzo. You know that. I also know that this is an important fact for the council in their decision-making process. It needs to be heard. And who says he isn't ready today? I am giving you the respect of telling them, but I will rescind the offer and say it myself if necessary. Jiraiya knew he was backed into a corner. He had to announce it. Damn you, Danzo. He turned to the council. If I even hear a whisper of this on the streets before Naruto decides to make this known, even the most basic allusion to it, I will deal with who leaked it. Sensei was too lax in what was done with Naruto and the Kyuubi, but I will not be. This secret is the one of highest guarded secret in the village. Stupidly, a concealmer asked, what's the highest guarded secret? Jiraiya just glared at the idiot. It is a secret only known to a handful of people at the top know of. Only the elders, Danzo, and the Hokage can know it. Even I have been left unaware of what it is, I just know it exists. Anyway, the parents of Uzumaki Naruto, I cannot honestly believe no shinobi has realized it, it is that obvious. I would have expected Shikaku would know. The Nara clan leader shook his head. No, I haven't a clue. I think my son figured it out though. A few days ago he was asking about Naruto's parents and some basic rules of genetics. He had one of those looks he gets when he realizes something shocking, but he shook it off saying that it was too much of a drag to talk about. Jiraiya laughed. So someone figured it out. Good to hear. I'm sure someone would have put together the looks of his father and personality of his mother and see that Naruto was the end result. The council quickly raced to figure out who Jiraiya meant, but the Toad Sage beat everyone to the punch. Uzumaki Naruto is the son of Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato. Jaws all around were dropped, and more than a few of the council members who hadn't treated Naruto well over the years began to get nervous. One decided not to accept it. Impossible. We all know the child was lost when Kushina was giving birth during the Kyuubi attack. And there is no way the Yondaime would make his son a container of the demon. We only let him be named Uzumaki to keep the name alive. Danzo was the one to respond. Initial reports did say the baby died during birth, but we later learned it was kidnapped by a masked figure minutes after birth. The official story was never retracted as both Kushina and Minato died, leaving the child orphan. We determined it irresponsible to acknowledge the heritage of the child. Iwa and Kumo would have both been threats because of the child. The petite blue-haired Jounin asked, why Kumo? I know Iwa hated the Yondaime, but what did Kumo have against him? Amura, the elder who had been quiet up until then, spoke up. Kumo had little qualm with the Yondaime, but more interested in his heritage with Uzumaki Kushina. Because? Amura looked regretfully at the Hyuga clan leader. The kidnapping of your heiress was not the first attempt by Kumo to acquire a female member of this village. Years ago, Kushina was kidnapped and taken due to her chakra chain ability. Interestingly enough, it was the Yondaime who saved her and actually began their romance after this. Hyuga Hiashi slowly nodded. I knew of this already. Though we were not very close, Kushina and I were on the same genin team for a little while, and I kept up tabs on my acquaintance. But still, it is hard to believe that Uzumaki is their son. Jiraiya nodded. Well, believe it. In the village, a blonde shinobi suddenly sneezed. The council member from before resumed his questioning. I still do not believe that our Yondaime would seal the Kyuubi into his own son. He would never let his son become a monster, and he stopped when he felt the menace of Jiraiya march towards him, pointing his finger in his face. He really hated ignorance and blatant lies. Especially at this point. Naruto is no monster, but that surprises me. I see how he is treated and how he kept sane and still loves this village is beyond me. Be thankful he was his son. But never, and I mean never, call him a monster. Or else I will show you a real one. Jiraiya increased his killer intent as he brought the finger closer to the man's face, but let it dissipate before he was a hair width away from his nose. He turned away abruptly and coldly asked, tell me counselor, what were your thoughts on the Yondaime's wife, Kushina? The counselor tried to control his breathing, but it was not an easy task. He managed to stutter out a response. Well, she was a little annoying, but she was a good person and loved the village greatly. And what do you know of Uzumaki Mido? The counselor raised his eyebrow. I believe she was the wife of the first Hokage, correct? She lived a long time and was considered a great person. Jiraiya nodded. Correct, sir. 2 women, both good people, both the wives of Hokages. Both from the same clan, Uzumaki, but not by any relation. Both, however, would be hated in this time. They would be mistreated, ignored, and possibly even abused. The counselor grew angry. What? Why? They were good people, they wouldn't deserve that. Jiraiya nodded. They do not, as does Naruto. But being the container of the Kyuubi changes that, does it not? A gasp came from everyone in the room. To most of the Jounin, clan heads, and council, it was the revelation that 2 of their Hokage's wives were previous container of the demon. To the elders, Kakashi, Asuma, and the Hyuga clan head, the gasp was in the fact that Jiraiya revealed that information so casually. Danzo gave Jiraiya a look that was harsh. This did not seem like the time to reveal that information, Jiraiya. It was important to do since it would show these people that my student, Uzumaki Naruto, can be trusted and a good Hokage. Jiraiya looked at Danzo while speaking. I don't trust anything you are saying right now, Danzo, but I will agree that your idea isn't terrible. Though I do not think he is by any means ready, I stand by you in making him Goddamn Hokage. Better have a good choice for the future than a bad choice right now. No offense, Hyuga, but you have a stick so far shoved up your ass that being Hokage simply won't work. You should focus on fixing your clan's shenanigans. And I doubt that I could get Tsunadeheim back here to take the job, so I might as well vote yes to Naruto. Jiraiya finished his statement, giving his vote and suddenly starting the election process. Danzo was happy to get the support, but he knew what a hassle it would be from Jiraiya moving forward. A few council members began to look uneasy as the one who questioned Naruto's heritage spoke once again. But why would the Yondaime continue this curse on the Uzumaki line? Why on his son? Kakashi answered this final question. It isn't a curse, but fate. Uzumakis have a genetic trait that lengthens their lives by almost triple the normal lifespan of a person, while naturally producing chakra at levels twice or even 3 times as big as a person. This trait suits them for surviving and holding in the Kyuubi, as it would likely kill anyone else who held it. When it escaped during Kushina-chan's labor with Naruto, Naruto was the only Uzumaki capable of holding in the Kyuubi. His eye narrowed at his final thoughts. And even if someone else could hold the Kyuubi, Sensei was never one to do something unless he would do it first. If he needed someone to be the container, he could not ask the Yamanakas to hand over their daughter or ask the Hyuga to seal it into their unborn child. He wouldn't put it into some random orphan. No, if he were to do it, he would do it with his son. A silence came over the room, and both the Yamanaka and Hyuga clan heads were in deep thought about how their daughters could have been the ones subjected to the Kyuubi. The consilmember spoke up. I stand with you, Danzo. If not for any other reason, it will be an apology for how I've treated Uzumaki Naruto in the past. Another consilmember rose. As do I. Soon, most of the consilmembers rose up. Of the 13 that were in this council, 9 went the way of Danzo and thus Naruto for Hokage, making the vote 11-4. Soon, the clan heads began to speak. I still say I'm the best fit for Hokage. Hyuga Hiashi stubbornly spoke. Nara Shikaku looked at his 2 longtime friends and teammates and mouthed something. They nodded and he turned his attention back to the council. Ino Shikacho votes for Naruto. And Yuzuka Tsume had been quiet the whole time, a fact a few shinobi just realized and were shocked at. She was in deep thought before she let out a growl. I like the kid, but I'm voting for Hyuga. The 10 clan heads came out even in their votes, 5-5, but the strength of 3 major clans against 2 for Naruto as Hokage was noticed. 16-9. Finally, the Jounin began to speak. Kakashi gave a smirk. Like father, like son. I trust Naruto to do the right thing, with a lot of guidance. And it would be interesting to say I was taught by one Hokage and taught another. 17-9. Sarutobi spoke up. Dad always liked the kid and said he would be a great Hokage someday. I don't think he meant today, but that's just life. I'm behind Naruto. 18-9. Unfortunately, they look like they were among the few. Of the 10 Jounin invited, there were only 2 others who voted for Naruto, the rest unable to find themselves being led by a 13-year-old appealing. The vote stood at 20-15, but it was not over. Neither Hamura or Kaharu had cast their ballots, and it required an approximate 60% vote to select a Hokage. The whole room seemed to wait on them as they sized up an imaginary Naruto and the real Hiashi. Kaharu was the first to speak. Well, I find Hiashi makes the most sense. Hiruzen told me that your gut instinct is sometimes more important. And my gut is telling me that we will see great things from the boy. Though I don't like the idea for now, I will vote for Naruto. The vote at 21-15, it was up to Hamura to decide. Would Naruto become Hokage or would he be rejected so close to his dream? Somehow, the shinobi knew that the support of the consilmembers was fleeting and technically the vote was barely 50% pro-Naruto by the shinobi, so this seemed like the only shot Naruto had at Hokage this time around. Finally, Hamura spoke. I never thought it would be up to me if we had a new Hokage, I thought it would end up being a different situation. Honestly, I thought Asuma-sen or Haddock-sen would have taken the title, but it did not come to pass. So here I am, stuck between a 13-year-old demon container with a famous legacy or a strong, dependable clan head known as Too Strict and lets an atrocity like the cage seal to exist in his clan. Unfortunately for you, Hyuga-san, that decides this for me. He weakly smiled to the gathering. I select Naruto Uzumaki. The realization of his words hung over the room. They had just made Uzumaki Naruto, the village pariah, the resident Jinchuriki, their Hokage. All of those who had not voted for him and had voted for Hyuga Hiashi refused to believe this. Surprisingly, all but 2 of the people had gotten over the container issue, save for a Jounin and councilwomen who had both lost lovers in the attack 13 years ago, but moreover age and experience. One of the clan heads who had voted for Hyuga rose up. This vote is not yet finished. The Uchiha clan has not voted on the affair and they deserve a vote. Danzo shook his head. That clan is but one child who is only 13 years old. The head shook his head. So, he plans to restore his clan, from what I understand. And we are nominating a 13-year-old to be our leader. Why not have one in his age group vote? In fact, unless I am wrong, Kakashi is the Jounin for a team consisting of both of them. Why shouldn't he have a vote? Danzo tried to shake him off. If we use that logic, we must track down Tsunade, as she has a vote as Sannin. That could take months and leave our village leaderless and in the eyes of the other villages, weak. Jiraiya raised his eyebrow at the thought and went to say something but was cut off by the arguing head. No, she is not in the village and in fact has done a self-imposed exile of this village. Its concerns is not for her to decide. The Uchiha, however, is here and is a member of the village. He has a right to vote and goddammit, he should have the right to execute it. The hare spoke up before Danzo could retort. I am afraid, Danzo-san, that he is correct. The Uchiha must get a vote on such an important topic. She focused his intention on Kakashi. Kakashi-san, if you may, retrieve your student so he may vote on this matter. Kakashi sighed, not really wanting to bring in the Uchiha, but it was in fact necessary. Should I bring Naruto as well? This vote does concern him becoming Hokage. The hare nodded. Yes, that will work perfectly. Now please, hurry up. Kakashi lazily put his hands into the necessary sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He muttered as a copy of himself appeared. It disappeared out the door to do the task at hand. Narashikaku looked around at the council and thought about what was at stake. And it was up to the vote of the Uchiha. He almost laughed to himself. Now, we wait. Slowly, the trio of Team 7 made their way from the training grounds to Naruto's haven, his beloved home away from home, Ichikare's. They normally didn't eat ramen with him, but they were too tired to think about going anywhere else for lunch. Naruto gave a grin. I think I'm gonna order 4 number 6 bowls of beef no pork, no miso pork ramen. That sounds really good. What are you going to get, Sakura-chan? She could barely shrug. I don't know, maybe salt or plain or something. Do they serve anything besides ramen? Naruto shrugged. Probably. I don't know what, since I always order ramen. What about you, Sasuke? What are you gonna get? Sasuke mustered up a glare because of the nickname. I don't know, dope. What are you getting again? Naruto didn't realize what he was called. 6 bowls of miso pork. Sasuke turned his lips into a smirk. I'm having 7 bowls of miso pork. Naruto nearly stopped at that. He gave a suspicious glare at Sasuke. You know, I'm feeling extra hungry today. Make that 8 bowls. Did I say 7? I meant 9. Sakura saw where this was going. It was a repeat of dinner with Tsunami all over again. Guys, stop it. 10. 11. Naruto's nostrils flared. 12 bowls of ramen. Believe it. Beat that, team. Sasuke nearly cracked a smile. Nearly. Watch me, dope. Unfortunately for both of you, you will be getting no ramen as of now. Both of you are wanted at the Grand Council meeting on the 3rd floor of the Hokage Tower. Now. You can eat after your presence is no longer needed. Kakashi showed up behind them, scaring them all slightly. Naruto was the first to recover. Watch it, Kakashi-sensei, you nearly killed me. I can't die before I'm Hokage. Believe it. Kakashi couldn't help but think to himself, won't you be in for a shock, Naruto? Sakura was the next to recover. Darn it, sensei. Why did you have to scare us like that? Sasuke quickly recovered and ignored the obvious. You said the 3rd floor of the Hokage Tower. Kakashi nodded. Correct, so you and Naruto better get a move on. Naruto looked puzzled. Why do they need us for? Kakashi looked at him knowingly. You will find out once you get there. Naruto just nodded. Alrighty. Hey, I bet I can beat you there. He turned to look at Sasuke but saw empty space. He looked around and saw Sasuke had already left to the tower, taking the rooftops. Oh, no, you don't. Naruto yelled and furiously made chase. Sakura just stared at the duo and then to Kakashi-sensei. She wanted to follow, she really did, but food. Hey sensei, do you want to get some ramen with me? Kakashi shrugged. Why not? Better than just dispelling myself. Sakura was taken aback. You're a Kage Bunshin. The Bunshin nodded. The real me is back at the meeting. Sakura stared back in the direction of the tower. So tempting, but, come on, let's get some ramen, Kakashi-sensei Bunshin. Sasuke heard the loud footsteps behind him, but ignored them. It was just the dope trying to beat him to the meeting room. He was at the door and looked up at the Anbu who were covering the entrances. Kakashi-sensei sent for me and the dope back there. Could I get in? The Anbu behind the turtle mask sized up the Uchiha and nodded. He opened the door and Sasuke walked right in, with a stumbling Naruto following him seconds later. Once Uzumaki cleared the doorway, the Anbu shut the door closed. He turned to his partner in Anbu, Rat, and whispered, why would they need those two to help decide for Hokage? Rat shrugged, I'm betting they need to vouch for someone. Maybe Kakashi-senpai. They are his students. Turtle thought about it and nodded. Probably. That is odd to think. Kakashi-sen is Hokage. Nothing will get down for 3 hours every day. Rat let out a little laugh. Yeah. Naruto managed to right himself before he bowled into somebody and found himself being looked at by the 38 people in the room. Slightly embarrassed, he rubbed the back of his neck. Sorry, I was trying to get here as fast as possible and I kind of sort of tripped over something when I was in the hallway, so I was stumbling, but I didn't fall so yeah. The people in the room listened to the explanation and accepted it at face value. It sounded like Naruto, honestly. Jiraiya motioned to 2 chairs, one in the front, next to Hyuga Hiashi, the other among the clan heads, where Hiashi once sat. Naruto, sit there next to Hyuga-sama, and Sasuke, take the other seat. Sasuke grunted and Naruto nodded to the request, taking the respective seats. Then, Jiraiya cleared his throat while standing up. "Boys, I am going get right to the point. This meeting is the meeting to decide who will be the next Hokage for this village." Naruto grinned. "And I'm guessing you guys realized I was the right guy for the job and you are picking me, right?" Sasuke openly chuckled. "In your dreams, dope." Naruto growled. "Shut up, team. They so could be naming me Hokage. Believe it." Sasuke shook his head. "The day they name you Hokage is the day pigs fly." Asuma began to laugh. He couldn't help himself, the image of Ino flapping her arms trying to fly was too funny. Sasuke tried to glare at him, but it bounced right off of him. Frustrated, he turned to his sensei. "What is he laughing at?" Kakashi sighed. "I think you accidentally said something in Asuma's mind. But believe it or not Sasuke, Naruto is really here since he might be named the next Hokage." It was rare that Sasuke was at a literal loss for words. Sure, he didn't always speak, but that didn't mean he didn't have something to say. But in this situation, in these circumstances, he was speechless. And if it was rare for Sasuke, it was a first for Naruto. He literally froze in his seat as that information sunk in. He did think he would become Hokage someday, he truly did, but even he had been joking around some when he said they were naming him Hokage. He knew he wasn't strong enough to defend the village yet. The big word being yet. But, somehow, his sensei just told him that he really might be named the next Hokage. Still, it didn't last forever as he recovered from the shock enough to ask the council, seriously. The idea of him becoming Hokage was still sinking in. Amaru and Kaharu, people Naruto recognized as people that helped out the old man, began to nod their heads. "Yes, young Naruto. Danzo over here," Hamaru motioned her hands to the bandaged warhawk, "nominated you for Hokage, and you have been accepted as a legitimate candidate for the position of Goddamn Hokage." Sasuke finally recovered and was livid. How the hell does this dope even remotely qualify for Hokage? Sasuke was confused as well. How the hell did Naruto, the orange-wearing dead last, get nominated to be Hokage? Danzo took to the defense of his decision once again. While Naruto is a most unconventional candidate, he has multiple accomplishments that are going for him. He is considered the savior of the land of waves, a hero in Tokigakure, and has received great acclaim in pacifying Gaara with the leaders in Sunagakure. He is extremely powerful, as shown in defeating the highly acclaimed Hyuga Neji and of Subaku Gaara. He has massive potential being unused, which we can focus in as he is Hokage. He is highly loyal and protective of the village, always top traits needed in a Hokage. He is willing to sacrifice himself for the good of the village, a task repeatedly asked for by those who claim the mantle of Hokage. Finally, he has the will to become Hokage, a will very few in this village show. Sasuke listened to his explanation, he honestly did, but he did not see it. "I don't get it, why him though? Why not someone better, someone older, why not me? I am powerful, I am a hero, I have potential, and I seek the power." Nara Shikaku explained quickly. "You say you seek power, but that is not what a Hokage does. Hokage seek responsibility and a desire to protect this village. You are unfit for Hokage position at this time due to your focus on other matters. A person with such a great diversion in his attention cannot be expected to be a Hokage who will protect his village. And Naruto has other things going for him." "Like what?" Sasuke, despite seeking power, knew he was not good for the role of Hokage. He was not a Hokage, he was an Avenger. But he was very curious what made his blonde teammate such a good candidate for Hokage. Jiraiya apologetically looked towards Naruto, transfixed by this conversation on why he could be Hokage. "Naruto, I have to explain some things to Sasuke. Some of these things I know you'd wish you didn't know. And some of these things will shock you, and I am sorry for that. I wish I could have told you, but the law prevented me from doing so. Understand?" Naruto simply nodded, knowing he meant to reveal his status as container of the Kyuubi. He had gotten close to Sasuke and nearly considered him a brother, and he thought the bond was mutual. Sasuke was one of the few people he thought he could tell and not be instantly hated, and he hoped that was right. He was highly curious about this other law, though. He wondered what it could possibly be. He saw Jiraiya about to explain, but he decided to step in. "Hirosenin, stop!" he exclaimed, ignoring the few people that blushed at his name for the man. "Let me tell him the thing I know. He deserves that much." Jiraiya had a gleam in his eye as he saw the boy take the initiative. He nodded and waited to see how Naruto would explain. Sasuke sat there, showing his anticipation, trying to figure out what could be such a big deal. Naruto set his gaze to the floor below him. "You know how I beat Gaara, Sasuke?" Sasuke shook his head slowly, he had been shocked when it happened and wondering that very same thing for a while. "The truth is, Sasuke, I didn't beat him. Not really. Sure, it was me beating him up. But the power that caused it wasn't mine." Naruto let the words hang for a moment before continuing. "It is impossible to kill a Buu. They are too strong and need to be sealed away in something. So when the Kyuubi attacked Konoha 13 years ago, when the 4th Hokage defeated it, he couldn't kill it. So he sealed it. Inside me. It is the reason the villagers don't like me and why most of the older people in the village ignore me. When they see me, they see the demon. He lifted up his teary blue eyes. But I'm not. I'm not the demon. I just have it stuck in my gut. And you guys don't know cause Gigi made a law forbidding people to talk about it or tell their kids, so I could try to grow up normal. He let out a little laugh. That worked well, huh? Sasuke just stared at the person he considered a friend, one of the many things he would probably keep to his grave, in shock. His friend, crying. His friend, holding a demon inside of him. He slowly turned to the villagers and his fellow shinobi, but shook his head. They weren't worth the air to tell them how big idiots they were. The dobe may have some extra bite, but he was still just the dobe. His friend. Sasuke just gave a sly smile as Naruto watched and shrugged his shoulders. What do you expect me to do? Attack you or something? You're still a dobe, even if you had kami sealed inside of you. It just means you got some demon stuck inside of you that can't do anything. No harm, right? Naruto shook his head. No, it can do stuff. When I get mad or something, the power comes to me. Like the time I kicked Haku's butt on the bridge. I thought he killed you my rival friend and I got mad. If his mask didn't slip off, I would have killed him to avenge you. And ever since Hiro Sennin threw me off a cliff so I could get the Kyuubi to give me its chakra, I can do that too. I had to use a lot of its chakra to beat Gaara, though. But it makes sense, since he was using his demon too. Sasuke almost cried. He wouldn't, of course, but being called a friend by him meant something to him. And the fact that his death had got him mad enough to use the Kyuubi's chakra was kind of cool, he admitted to himself. "Hn, I could still kick your ass." Naruto's eyes began to go aflame. Bring it on, team. They were broken up by Jiraiya, which led them to realize their deep heartfelt conversation was seen by a couple dozen people. Naruto blushed and looked away from everybody, while Sasuke popped his collar just a little bit higher to shield himself. That was more heartfelt and honest than either one was comfortable around each other. The conversation had quite a reaction on the crowd. It struck a personal chord with Naruto's mention of a harsh life and Sasuke's casual acceptance. Even the Hyuga clan head smiled a little at their strength of their bonds. Eventually, Kakashi spoke up. "Jiraiya, if you don't mind, I would like to tell my students the next bit. I will leave the big news to you, but I want to get a say." The council and Jiraiya all thought about this and so no problem with it. "Well, Sasuke, Naruto, I want to tell you about the history of the container of the Kyuubi in Konoha." Naruto was surprised to say the least. "Wait, you mean I'm not the first?" He felt a little down about that. If he was gonna hold this curse, he might as well been the first one too. Kakashi nodded. "Yes, in fact, they all came from the same clan as you do. The Uzumaki clan." "Wait, I'm a part of a clan. There's no Uzumaki clan in Konoha." Kakashi nodded. "Yes, Naruto, you are, and you are correct, Sasuke, there isn't. The Uzumaki clan was a part of Uzushiogakure before it was destroyed by Wagakure during the Second Shinobi World War. The survivors migrated to Konoha since the Uzumaki clan had ties to Konoha. The Shadai was married to the Uzumaki Mido. She was the first container of the demon." Naruto's eyes went wide. "You mean the container was the Hokage's wife?" Kakashi simply nodded. "Yes, and when the time came, before her death, she had to pass it on to another Uzumaki. Your mother." "My mom was a container too." Kakashi simply nodded. "Then why the heck was I treated so bad?" The guilty party stayed silent, so Jiraiya answered for them. "In the case of Uzumaki Mido, people understood it was a burden for the good of the village. In the case of your mother, people were mostly ignorant to the fact. For you, they cast the pain they felt from the Kyuubi's attack on the village onto you." One of the council members stood up slowly. "I apologize. My actions towards you were wrong and stupid. I hope you can forgive me." The councilwomen nodded. "Yeah, I would like to apologize for my actions. I treated you poorly when I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have projected my hate for the Kyuubi onto you. I apologize." Soon, all but the one councilwoman who was keeping a grudge apologized, followed by a few of the jounin who had a guilty conscience, along with a couple of the minor clan heads who were guilty. When Naruto thought he had received all of the apologies, one came from a person he didn't expect. "On behalf of the entire Hyuga family, I apologize for the negative treatment we have given you. I am at most fault with this, as I should have known better especially." Naruto was a little confused. "How come, Hyuga-san?" Ieyashi was a little annoyed at the lack of proper honorific, but it wasn't that important. "Well, I knew your mother and about how she was the container, since we were on the same genin team." Naruto's eyes went wide. "Really? You were on a team with my mom?" Ieyashi nodded. "Yes, and might I say you act just like she did, down to the verbal tick. Though she said believe me, instead of believe it. We were not particularly close, as I found her somewhat irritating, we got along well enough. I should have realized you were her child, but certain things were withheld from us that made me ignorant of this fact." Sasuke nodded in sympathy to Hiyashi's plight of an annoying teammate. Naruto was more curious about his mother. "Really? Like me? What did she look like?" Hiyashi gave a gentle smile despite himself. He was giving a kid memories about his mother, something he previously had done for his youngest daughter Hanabi when she asked about her mother 2 years ago. "Well, even I will admit she was a beautiful woman, with long red hair and striking purple eyes. Your personality is just like your mother, your looks are not." Naruto sort of laughed. "So you are saying that I look like my dad?" Hiyashi gave a slight nod. "Correct. So who was he?" Naruto asked, not realizing the tension in the room. Even Sasuke was curious. Hiyashi turned to Jiraiya. "I believe this is for you to answer." Naruto quickly turned to his second sensei. "So who was he? Was he an awesome hero or what?" Normally, Sasuke would make a joke here, but he had a feeling he was actually a hero if it was kept secret. Or a criminal. But for some reason, the way a lot of people were sucking up to Naruto, he was sure it was hero. And he doubted a son of a criminal that had to be kept secret would be voted hokage. Which he still thought was bullshit, but it was happening apparently. The dope. Seriously? Jiraiya sighed. "Your father, Naruto, was my prized student, Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage." Sasuke's jaw dropped. The dope was the son of a Hokage. What the fuck? The son of a Hokage. No wonder they think he could be Hokage if he was anything like his father. But he wasn't. He quickly remembered how the Hyuga head had explained it. He was like his mother. But he doubted he was entirely like his mother. So maybe. Naruto, on the other hand, was shocked. His idol, the man he strived to be better than, was his father. He was the son of a Hokage. His father was a hero. His father was a great man. His father sealed the Kyuubi inside of him. That thought triggered something in Naruto as he began to get angry. His father made him live a crappy life. His father made him have to deal with the Kyuubi on a daily basis. Have to worry about a demon escaping from you and killing everyone you love. Naruto's anger grew to the point that he began to draw from the Kyuubi's chakra. People began to notice the red chakra emanating from his body and slowly began to back off. The council members were beginning to rethink their newfounded opinions on the boy. Jiraiya had been afraid of this reaction and was unsure of what to do next. Sasuke was confused until he remembered a few things Naruto had said. He realized Naruto was pissed that his own father sealed the Kyuubi inside of him. Sasuke could understand that anger, that betrayal. He also grew uneasy thinking about his own anger towards his brother and translating it to the chakra he was seeing. "You are saying my father put a demon inside of me?" Naruto screamed in a voice not fully his own. How could he do that? To his own son. Jiraiya knew what to do next, so he moved towards the boy. "Naruto, calm down." He had no choice on the matter. "You were the only one who could handle the sealing. He should have tried harder. I was his own son, damn it." A chakra tail began to slowly form behind him, getting everyone on guard, with a few council members about to bolt out of the room. He couldn't do that. Minato was too nice and too good of a man to force on another the burden. He couldn't ask another man to do something that he himself wouldn't do. Jiraiya tried to explain. "It doesn't matter. He was my father, damn it. He should have been there." The root of the problem began to come out. Besides simple anger at being chosen, he was feeling abandoned. Kakashi took a step forward. "Calm down, Naruto." Naruto released a load of killer intent directly at his sensei, who didn't budge. "Shut up, sensei. Where were you? You were his student. Why weren't you there for me?" He turned his attention to his newest sensei. "And you? He was your student. Where the fuck were you? Writing those damn pervy books." Both were taken aback at the accusation and both felt guilty. They both had excuses. Kakashi didn't realize it until they began training and Jiraiya had to deal with his spy network, but they should have tried harder, they both knew. Naruto's anger began to stabilize the tail and people were unsure of what to do. Except for Sasuke. Sasuke, as confidentially as he could make himself look, began to walk up to Naruto. Everyone in the room was surprised by this and began to hope that the Uchiha heir wasn't on a death wish or something. Naruto began to eye his friend suspiciously as he walked up to him, fighting through the killer intent he was leaking. Eventually, he found himself standing before Naruto. And everyone in the room was shocked as Sasuke slowly balled up his right hand into a fist and punched the Kyuubi-powered Naruto in the face as hard as he could. "Calm down, dope. Now isn't the time to get pissed off. Save it for later." Naruto slowly got up from the punch, chakra still flowing, and walked back up to Sasuke. The punch didn't show due to his rapid regeneration, but there was a drop of blood coming from the corner of Naruto's mouth. And, just as calmly, Naruto balled his Kyuubi chakra-covered hand into a ball and decked Sasuke, sending him flying into the arms of one of the Jounins. Everyone in the room was slowly backing to the edge of the room, expecting a fight. The Jounin Sasuke landed on pushed him off, forcing him to stand up. Sasuke had an obvious bruise around his eye and even a slight scorch mark from the chakra. He walked back up to Naruto and just glared at him, inches away from his face. Naruto returned the glare and slowly the chakra began to fade. First his tail vanished, leaving a cloak that was thinning. And slowly the cloak faded away until all that was left were the red slit eyes. Then, they too went. Naruto suddenly grabbed onto Sasuke for support, with Sasuke actually helping him to do so. Sasuke maneuvered Naruto back to his seat and unceremoniously dropped him into the chair. Naruto looked up with his blue eyes and flashed a grin. He went farther. Everyone in the room wanted to sweat drop at this surprisingly display, even Kakashi. Danzo was even surprised at how things went for his Hokage candidate and couldn't help but compare it to him and Hiruzen. Sasuke gave him a smirk. Yeah, but I can still kick your ass. I would like to see you try. Jiraiya decided to break up the sizing up. Okay you two, break it up. If you guys wanna fight it out, wait until after this meeting. He was also glad this tower and room in particular had so many seals in it. The only people who would have felt that surge were in this room. Sasuke gave a HN and walked back to his chair while Naruto glared at his perverted sensei. Jiraiya felt the glare and sighed. Look, Naruto, I'm sorry. He turned to look him in the face. He saw the hurt and didn't like it. He was his godson. Too screwed up. I'll admit it. Your daddy made me your godfather. And I was supposed to watch you. But I didn't. I'm sorry. But to be fair, I had to help the village with my spy network. If it hadn't been for that, I would have been there for you. Jiraiya patted his back as the hurt turned into a genuine smile. It's okay. I understand, hero godfather. Jiraiya decided to let that one slide since he was forgiving him. Kakashi came up to the plate next. I would have raised you if I thought I could. But I don't think I'm exactly good father material. And I didn't know you were his son. Naruto was confused. How come you were his student? Beharu sighed. Naruto, at your birth, someone kidnapped you. Naruto's eyes bulged since you were the Yondame's son. Initial report said you had died and after you parents both passed away, we thought it was best to keep saying that. Understand your father and mother had enemies and it was in your best interest that it be kept a secret. We were going to tell you on your 18th birthday or the day you made Jounin so you could be strong enough. I hope you forgive us. She motioned to Hamura and Danzo. Naruto thought about it for a moment and sighed. I guess I understand. Doesn't mean I have to like it. He nearly began to pout when he looked at everybody in the room, especially the civilians, who were still on edge. He nervously scratched the back of his head. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean for that to happen, but I just got a little mad. A little. Shut up, team. Anyway, yeah, I'm sorry. I hope it doesn't stop you from voting me Hokage. He gave everyone a big grin. Danzo liked his ability to rebound from situations, it would provide useful for him. He turned his attention to the Uchiha with a deciding vote. It was actually a blessing that the Uchiha had come along, since the 2215 technically did not give 60% needed to vote one as Hokage. So that no one could call it out later, he needed the Uchiha to vote for him. He hadn't realized it until Haddock sent the clone, but he was thankful Kaharu had gone by the book. Now the question was, would his Uchiha teammate vote for him? Amura began to talk. How they vote does not matter, as they have already voted. We bring Uchiha here to be the decision maker on the subject. She turned to the Uchiha. Currently, we have two candidates for the position of Godame Hokage. Your teammate Uzumaki Naruto and the leader of the Hyuga clan, Hyuga Hiashi. The vote is currently 22-15 and your vote shall decide if we have a new Hokage or we go to plan B for the spot. Sasuke soon had his elbows on the desk, his hands together, like he usually did when he was sitting. He looked into his joined hands and then to the elder. What is plan B? In the case of two candidates, it is a spar, no holds barred. Naruto audibly gulped. Even he wasn't dumb enough to think he could take the Hyuga clan leader unless he used the Kyuubi big time. And he didn't want to risk losing control, like how he almost did. Hiashi's mind was racing with all the possibilities of how to best continue, no matter how the vote went. Sasuke began to go into thought. Who has 22 and who has 15 votes for them? Amura went to speak, but the contender stepped in. No, it could unduly influence him to vote one way or another to purposefully vote one way or another. If it is to be honest, then he must not know. Sasuke gave a glance at the man. Why are you afraid? Think that if you are so close to victory, your clan rival will spite the title away from you? Or is it you are so close to losing, your only hope is that I vote against my teammate? The Hyuga said nothing. The experienced blood enemy who can't even keep his branch family in check, or the dope son of a hero with lots of potential, but could theoretically kill us all. Who should I choose? Sasuke thought to himself. Naruto was his friend, wanted the position, and had heritage to back him up. However, the Hyuga was more experienced, less of a dope, and probably knew what he would be doing. The answer came down to the simple question, who did he trust more? His mortal enemy or a demon container? I select Naruto. Naruto almost stopped breathing in shock. Sasuke picked him. To be Hokage. Homura spoke. It has been decided. By a vote of 23-15, Uzumaki Naruto has been selected to become the Goddamn Hokage of Konohagakure. Naruto was ecstatic. He did it. He was Hokage. He wanted to hoop and holler. He wanted to scream it to the heavens. He wanted to dance forever. He wanted to personally tell every villager that the demon was the Hokage. But it took every ounce of self-constraint to stop him from doing so. Every goddamn milligram. Naruto knew from the old man that the Hokage couldn't act like that. So he just sat there, shaking slightly in excitement, wearing a huge grin on his face. Jiraiya looked suspiciously at Danzo, wondering his reaction. He was real happy for the kid, he got his dreams, but he didn't trust it one bit. He was sure everyone, even some of the civilians, saw this as a ploy for Danzo and the elders to have much more control than they did under the Sandaime, but his logic had been sound enough to convince people in voting for him. Heck, even he had against his best judgment, but it sure as hell was better than the Hyuga. He only wished he could be on the council to help stop this, but he knew he couldn't stay in Konoha forever. He had to upkeep his network, and that went throughout the lands. He would have to travel. If only he could get someone he trusted on the council to help keep Danzo and the other elders from calling all the shots. Naruto did have the right to appoint new elder counselors, he was allowed 5. The Sandaime just only used 3. Right then, Jiraiya was stuck with inspiration. It was a long shot, but it was a perfect solution for Jiraiya. If he could only go and convince her, it would be for the best. But then he stopped to think about it. He couldn't leave Naruto at the moment. He had just become Hokage. He was susceptible to major influence by Danzo and could ruin everything. If Danzo got his hands on Naruto, he might become little better than a figurehead root member. How could he protect Naruto now and long term? Jiraiya began pondering how to best solve this conundrum. Danzo smirked confidently. The Uchiha had come through for him after all and had gotten his shinobi into office. He was very, very glad that his plan had worked. It had been a total crapshoot, a spur-of-the-moment inspiration, but Danzo was the son of an Ara mother. He could think very quickly and come up with plans instantly, all to his benefit. Now, he had to get control of the boy's training to make him worthy. Sasuke couldn't help but be shocked by himself. He had voted Naruto of all people as Hokage. Sure, his other option was Hyuga Heihachi, the clan head of the family he was taught to think of as the enemy since he began to walk, but it was still a hard thing to comprehend. He began to think of the things he might do, like make ramen the official food of Konoha. That would be bad enough, but how would he deal with policy? Protecting the village. He gave a glance to the man that had nominated Naruto and stopped. He was a little curious why he got the same feeling from that man as he did Orochimaru. That power, that presence. He had an innate feeling that this man could give him the power he needed to beat Itachi. He gave a little smile. With Danzo and Kakashi instructing him, his brother was as good as dead. Heihachi was very frustrated. He had hoped he would have gotten the vote to the sparring round, but it had failed. He knew he could defeat Naruto and overcome the Kyuubi's chakra, he did with his mother. Now, Danzo's puppet was wearing the hat. He needed to figure out a way to steer some of the power away from Danzo and into his hands. He considered his resources and what he could use in this task. A memory struck him concerning his father-in-law, and he knew he had the answer of how to wrangle his way into power. If he could get the cooperation of his supporters, he would have his power over the boy and away from Danzo. Naruto broke the silence. So, what else do we have to talk about? Many people were stunned by the question. They had not been expecting him to say that. A minor clan head spoke out. What do you mean? Naruto looked at him. Well, this is the Grand Council, right? You guys ran the show when we had no Hokage. So, I bet you guys have to talk about stuff. And since I'm Hokage, I get some say in this stuff. His analysis had not been expected, so it took a moment for someone to answer their new Hokage. Well, Hokage-sama, this will only a council to appoint the newest Hokage. Nothing else was on the agenda. Homura explained. Oh. Naruto said. So there is nothing for me to do. The council was surprised at his eagerness to get started. They thought he would be too busy celebrating to begin working. Koharu shook his head. Well, we the council must talk to you about a few things first, but beyond that, there is nothing that I know of that can be done today. Naruto began to nod furiously. Okay. So let's talk. A few eyebrows rose until Danzo clarified. When Koharu-san says council, he means the Hokage's council. This meaning me, Koharu-san, and Homura-san. Naruto looked at Danzo. Don't I get to pick my own council? I don't really know you guys, so shouldn't I pick people I know to be on my council? Danzo's eyes rose out of fear. Homura and Koharu, on the other hand, were much calmer. If you wish that, Hokage-sama, then yes, you can select a new council. However, we have worked under the Sandaime for many years and could prove of utmost importance. Homura explained. Fiharu continued. Technically, you may elect 2 more people you see fit to be on this council to help you. It may in fact be in your best interest to do so you may have seasoned counselors when the 3 of us may retire. Danzo mentally blanched. Though they were right, it was not for the best of his plan. He should have taken this under consideration, but he had been thinking too long-term to calculate this into account. Jiraiya smiled, sensing an opportunity. Well, council, I see a perfect opportunity here. I have been thinking about a few things that have been said, and I see a way to alleviate many of our problems. I believe, Naruto, that you should seek for your council Senju Tsunade, one of the 3 legendary Sannin and my former teammate. Many eyes rose. Did you not say you did not expect her to come back? Someone said. Jiraiya nodded. True, but I meant specifically as Hokage. As a counselor, we have a better chance of getting her back here. Danzo looked at Jiraiya. And you wish to go and spend weeks, if not months, in finding her? His phrasing only confirmed Jiraiya's fears. Jiraiya shook his head. No, I wish to take the Hokagen for us to go and find her. That surprised many of the current council members. Danzo spoke out again. That is highly irresponsible, Jiraiya. Letting the new Hokage travel out, not yet strong enough to defend himself fully from the threats of this world. Jiraiya countered. I do not wish to send the Hokage out haphazardly, but with a purpose. As his sensei, I will be able to fully train him during our search, making him much stronger than he currently is. And yes, I will use the techniques you suggested earlier, Danzo-san. It will enable him to get the real-world experience you fear he is lacking, Hyuga-san, while giving us an important tool to convince Tsunade Haim to return. She cannot reject the direct orders of the Hokage, now can she? Jiraiya had laid out his reasoning, he only hoped it was enough. Fiharu thought about it. You are correct in your thoughts, Jiraiya-san, you are forgetting a few things. Once the shinobi world finds out the Hokage is a 13-year-old ex-genin, not even a Sannin will be able to stop the people who will come after him. And, whomever the young Godame selects to be on his council is his choice, not his sensei's. Jiraiya turned to Naruto. Would you mind if we didn't tell anyone about your selection as Hokage until after this mission? Naruto began to struggle mentally with the concept of people not knowing he was Hokage, but eventually gave in. Shiriro Sannin, but why should I get her for my council? Why can't I pick from the people I know? Jiraiya sighed. Look, Naruto, I am suggesting her for 2 reasons. 1, the people you know, well, they aren't really that experienced enough to put onto the council. You don't simply want your friends, but people with different ideas and attitudes. He motioned to Danzo. Like Danzo and the Sandame. They had different philosophies of how to do things, but the Sandame kept him on the council because of that very reason. Tsunade, with her vast experience and knowledge of the lands due to her travels, does this perfectly. And secondly, I will not always be here to watch and train you, since my spy networks are vital for the safety of this village. So, I want to have someone I know I can trust here to help watch over you. Naruto absorbed it in, and it made sense. Okay, Iro-sanin. Let's go find Tsunade to help me be the greatest Hokage ever. Jiraiya gave a smile at his enthusiasm. Good to hear, Naruto. This means, for the next month or 2, you have to keep silent about being Hokage until you get back. Jiraiya turned to the council. That means for all of you. Not a word must leak out about Naruto here being selected Hokage. He needs to train in both his shinobi and political skills before this is known for his and Konoha's safety. He turned to the elders. That also means, for Konoha's safety, you should refrain from telling him the Hokage-only secrets. Danzo and the others understood what was meant. In case something should happen to Naruto, the secrets of Konoha could be kept from the grasps of enemies. The council member asked, who will lead Konoha when our Hokage is on this mission? I do not think we can continue meeting, as it may arise suspicion on why we have not voted in a new Hokage. Surprising everyone, Naruto came up with a plan. You guys can say the Hokage is getting special training before he is announced, and you guys, he motioned to the 3 elders, can run stuff. And I guess Shikamaru too, since I probably want him on my council. He is really smart and stuff, and would probably like not having to go out and do missions. And he knows what I would want, so that works, right? Shikaku was surprised that his son was being put on the council by the Hokage, but he guessed it made sense. It would also help counter some of Danzo's possible policies. Hiashi was grateful that there was a counter to Danzo, however inefficient that might be at the moment. And Danzo was annoyed that the council was being filled upon spots with people he did not really want to work with. However, as he knew well, the Hokage's word was absolute. Soon, there was an agreement on the plan, as it made sense for Konoha. Suddenly, Kakashi got up and whispered something in Naruto's ear, much to Danzo's chagrin, and nodded. And I want reports every week sent to me and Iro-san Jiraiya about what is happening. Naruto stopped himself from calling his second sensei by his given nickname, as he realized Hokages didn't call people by nicknames like that. Which meant calling Sasuke team was out too. Being Hokage was really hard. And he didn't even get to the paperwork. Naruto nearly shivered thinking back to all the paperwork on Gigi's desk. Danzo lifted an eyebrow. Oh? How will we do that? You do not know the Konoha's code system yet. Naruto shrugged, well, Jiraiya will have to tell me what it says and he can teach me it. Unable to counter that logic, Danzo did not respond. There were a few looks around before Jounin spoke. I think, just to be safe, we should have someone go with the Hokage-sama and Jiraiya-sama. You know, someone that we can trust to help them in case something happens. Someone strong. Another Jounin nodded. Yeah, I think so too. Murmurs filed the room agreeing with the statement. Eventually eyes turned to the Hokage. He was surprised by the looks. What? Why are you all looking at me like that? Sasuke shook his head disappointed. Because, Hokage-san, Sasuke dealt with facts. Fact was, Naruto was the Hokage. Another fact, though, was that Hokage or not, Sasuke could still almost definitely kick his ass. You are the leader of the village. So it is up to you to decide if you get another escort for the mission. Naruto nodded his head. Oh yeah. He quickly went into a thinking pose, trying to figure out if someone should come with him. It made sense, you had to protect the Hokage, but he wasn't sure if Konoha could afford to let go of a shinobi who could actually protect him. He remembered enough from Iruka's classes to know the village got most of its money in high-class missions, and the village needed money to rebuild. He turned to the council he inherited. Is there any shinobi that can help us with that? I know we have to make money and stuff to rebuild, but is there anyone we can spare? Koharu and Hamaru looked at each other and shook their heads. I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, but the village has no one that they can send on a long-term mission for no fee at this time. Koharu explained. Naruto sighed, but then Danzo spoke up. I may be of assistance. Though they are not shinobi per se, they are bodyguards that I have trained in the shinobi way to help protect me and my family. I can afford to let one to help your cause. Jiraiya knew exactly what Danzo was talking about. Root. His own personal Anbu that should have been disbanded years ago. You know, Danzo, it is highly unethical to train people in the art of shinobi and not have them be a part of the village's active roster. Danzo looked back at Jiraiya. Perhaps, but I want to feel safe. My injuries have made me less able as a shinobi, so I required the best to teach me. And hiring private guards is cheaper than paying for a full-time mission. Jiraiya glared at Danzo, wishing he could force him to slip up, but knew it was little use. The man was too goddamn slippery. He turned to Naruto and hesitantly asked. Would you want one of Danzo's? He gave a quick glare at the man once again, personal bodyguards to escort us on this trip. Naruto turned to Danzo. Are they strong? Like really strong? Danzo simply nodded. Of course. If I wanted to train someone to protect me, I would want them to be as strong as possible. Perhaps, I could train you sometime. Jiraiya quickly shook his head. I do not think there is any need for that, Danzo. Between me and Kakashi-san, I believe we can handle Naruto's further training quite well. Naruto was confused at how Jiraiya was handling the man. He was being very protective of Naruto and not trusting the man with anything. Shouldn't he be nice to him? I mean, he was the main reason that Naruto just got voted to Hokage. Wasn't he a friend? Well then, Danzo-san, sure. I would love one of your personal guards to help protect me. Naruto enthusiastically told him, much to Danzo's pleasure. Very well. I will have them waiting for you when you leave. Great. Jiraiya growled, knowing he had to deal with some root brat while he was looking for Tsunade, as if that wasn't hard enough. However, it was a good idea to have someone to help protect the kid if Akatsuki decided to make a move, so Jiraiya wasn't going to fight it any further. He nodded in compliance. That sounds wonderful. We will be leaving tomorrow at 9 AM from the North Gate. Will that be an issue? Danzo shook his head. Not at all. In fact, I am surprised it isn't earlier. Naruto shook his head. No, that sounds good. We can actually eat first before we go. Jiraiya nodded. Exactly my reasoning. Naruto began to look around at the Grand Council and that they were doing nothing. He decided it was enough. I guess, since we figured out everything, meeting dismissed. The people looked around, unsure if that was appropriate. Naruto luckily realized their confusion and turned to Danzo. Unless there is some reason why they need to stay. Danzo again shook his head. No, you are right, Hokage-sama. He directed his attention to the crowd. You heard, Hokage-sama. Meeting dismissed. At that confirmation, most of the people left the room. Among the ones remaining were Nara Shikaku, Hyuga Hiashi, Sasuke, Jiraiya, Sarutobi Asuma, Kakashi, and the elders. Naruto was surprised that so many people were still there. He understood the elders and Jiraiya and Kakashi and even Sasuke, but not the other three. What are you guys still doing here? He motioned to the three anomalies. The Ashi bowed slightly and spoke. Hokage-sama, I know it was ruled that your selection be kept secret, but I wish permission to tell certain members of my family. Naruto raised his eyebrow. Like who? The Ashi calmly replied. The Hyuga Council, and possibly the heiress. Naruto had a sudden realization. You mean Hinata? Why do you want to tell her? The Ashi paused for a moment and continued. I wish to tell my heiress, and the council for that matter, because I had told them I would seek the position you are in. I must tell them about my failings and wish to enlighten them on who beat me. Naruto scratched the back of his head and turned to his inherited advisors. Is that a good idea? The Haru turned to Homura, who simply shook her head. No, it is not. There is no need for them to know who is Hokage before everyone else. Naruto nodded at the advice. Yeah, so, I have to say no, Hyuga-san. Sorry. The look of frustration graced the Hyuga face, but quickly passed. I understand. He bowed again. Good day, Hokage-sama. The Hyuga left the room quickly. It was Asuma's turn to speak to his father's successor. He didn't bow, but gave a nod of his head. You know, Naruto-sama, of all the kids in Konoha, I think you were the best to name Hokage. But I need to ask you something. What is it? Naruto asked him politely. Well, I was wondering how my team would work with Shikamaru on the council. I was wondering if you were planning to replace him or another option. Naruto scratched his nose. Huh, I didn't even think about his team. He gave Asuma his grin. Sorry about that, Asuma-san, but I have to get back to you on that one. Shikaku interrupted. If I may, I want to ask if I should go retrieve my son so he can be aware of these developments. I do not believe you are aware of this, Hokage-sama, but someone can refuse to be on your council. Naruto nodded in agreement. Yeah, that makes sense. Could you fetch Shikamaru Nara-san? Shikaku nodded. Right away, Hokage-sama. With that he left the room. Asuma decided to wait around and hear the verdict. Sasuke decided to talk to him now. So, Hokage-san, what will happen with our team? You can't exactly go on missions with us because of your duties and all. Naruto thought about it and his face brightened. He turned to his advisor, Danzo. Hey, Danzo-san, you said you have guards and stuff who are trained, right? Danzo uneasily nodded. Yes, I do. Is there any our age that can join in on my team to replace me? It would be really awesome if you did. Danzo's eye widened. He had a perfect opportunity here to do a long-term goal and there was no way he would let it pass. In fact, I do. I will have him join your team tomorrow for practice. After he registers as a shinobi. Jiraiya darkly said. Danzo simply nodded. Yes, after. Naruto just smiled. That's great. I don't see anything else we have to do besides the Shikamaru thing, right? Tahara nodded. That is correct, Hokage-sama. Naruto was happy to hear that. His first day on the job and he hadn't messed up yet. Sure, it had only been like 20 minutes, but still it was a lot to him. Great then. Naruto happily exclaimed. So you guys can go when I talk with Shikamaru. The elders raised their eyebrows. Should we not stay to help talk to him? Naruto shook his head. No, cause I want to talk to him in private while I tell him the stuff about me. I don't know, I really don't like talking about it in front of people. Before the elders could say anything, Sasuke surprisingly stepped in. There is no point arguing. Hokage-san is really annoying if he wants something. Naruto frowned. I'm not annoying. He heard coughs come from both Jiraiya and Kakashi. He glared at them for a moment and exclaimed, Bah. With both of you. So please leave me alone so I can prepare myself. The elders, especially Danzo, were hesitant but listened. Soon the room was almost cleared save for Jiraiya, who looked at his student, knowing what he was really doing. He was more dealing with all the information he had learned than preparing himself to tell Shikamaru. He sighed, almost feeling the boy's confusion, but let him be. Jiraiya would need some time alone if he found out all of what Naruto learned. With that he sighed, waved to boy, and closed the door shut, leaving Naruto alone in the room to think to himself. Mentally, Naruto was a mess. Between being ecstatic and shocked about being named Hokage, the surprise of finding out his mother was just like him, the joy his hero was his father, and the pure rage that his father had sealed the Kyuubi inside of him, Naruto had no control over his mind. He tried to prioritize. First thing, Hokage. I'm Hokage. Naruto promptly stood up and did the most ridiculous dance he could think of. He was shaking his hips, doing fist pumps, extreme headbanging, shuffling, doing the disco, and at one point reverenced his joy out. He even summoned a horde of clones to put on the shoulders and carry around, cheering for him. With the joy out of the way, he turned to the next thing he had to digest. His mother being a container. He sighed for himself, finally feeling connected to his mother. Hyuga-sen had told him they acted a lot alike and she had red hair and purple eyes. She also knew the burden of holding the demon inside of her. He had a random thought that he liked. Next time he was in the sewer that was the seal, he would ask the Kyuubi about his mom. It would probably know her best, right? Before Naruto could even begin to contemplate anything to do with his father, he heard a knock on the door. Who is it? Nah, what a drag. It's me, Shikamaru with my dad. He said I had to talk to you. Naruto nodded before realizing Shikamaru couldn't see him. Good, come in. Your dad too. Naruto added as a second thought. He would probably need someone to help convince Shikamaru he was actually Hokage. Shikamaru opened the door slowly and dragged himself in, his dad following. Shikamaru gave a glare at Naruto. Why was I dragged here to see you? I was watching clouds in perfect peace until my dad dragged me here. Naruto smirked. You shouldn't speak to your Hokage like that, Shikamaru. It is not right. Shikamaru gave a snicker. You, Hokage. Unlikely as me marrying Ino-san. Shikaku cackled, much to Shikamaru's confusion. What's so funny, dad? He managed to get a grip of himself. When's the wedding? Your mother would like to know. Shikamaru gave his dad a strange look before realization hit him. He turned back to Naruto, back to his father, and back to Naruto. You weren't joking, were you? Naruto shook his head. You're the Hokage. Naruto nodded. Shikamaru sighed and made his way to a chair. You know, dad, I think I know why you drink now. Shikaku laughed at that and turned to his leader. Do you want me to hang around or? Naruto cut him off. No, it's okay Nara-san, you can go. With that, the Nara clan leader left, leaving Shikamaru and Naruto all alone. So, how the hell did you get voted Hokage? Shikamaru bluntly asked. Naruto shrugged. I'm not really sure. This Danzo guy nominated me apparently and convinced enough people that I was the best person for the job. Shikamaru simply nodded. He must be a really good talker. I heard my dad talk about him before and I thought he would want to be Hokage. Naruto shrugged. He is all bandaged up and stuff, so maybe he is too weak to do it. Shikamaru looked at him funny. You realized you were just a genin this morning. Naruto narrowed his eyes. Yeah, well, I have a lot of potential. And Jiraiya is going to train me really hard when we leave the village to find the last person for my council, some chick named Tsunade. Shikamaru raised his eyebrow to that information. Tsunade. You mean the Sannin, the great medical ninja? Naruto absently nodded. Yeah, I guess. Shikamaru sighed as thought about something. So why am I here again? Naruto smiled. Because I want you to be on my Hokage's council. Shikamaru was surprised by that one. You want me on your council? Naruto nodded enthusiastically. How come? Well, I know you are really smart and will do anything for the village. You are good enough to be considered a chunin already, so I thought you would be perfect. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes at the offer. What about Team 10? I can't abandon Choji with Ino. That would be cruel, and he is my best friend. Naruto tapped his fingers on the armrest. I don't know. I was hoping you could think of something. Shikamaru sighed and went into his thinking pose. Naruto wanted to interrupt but realized what Shikamaru was doing from the Chunin exam finals and kept quiet. Shikamaru broke from the pose. I suggest letting my father substitute me on this council while I do some missions with them while they complete others with either Sasuke or Sakura filling the 4th spot. Naruto shook his head. I already filled my old spot. Shikamaru raised his eyebrow. This quickly? Naruto nodded. Yeah, that Danzo guy trains personal guards like shinobi and he is letting one go to become a real shinobi and replace me. Shikamaru raised his eyebrow at that knowledge but didn't say anything on it. Well, I am sure there are other genin that can fill the spot as needed. Naruto agreed with that. There were hundreds of genin Konoha, they could surely find one to help them out. Yeah. So will you do it? Shikamaru sighed. Sure, I'll do it. Naruto gave a big grin. Great to hear. I know I can count on you. Then, surprising Shikamaru, his face turned serious. Now, I think, I have to tell you a few things about me you need to know if you are going to be my counselor. He had gained Shikamaru's full attention, a rarity in his life. Firstly, I am the container of the Kyuubi. He gave Shikamaru a moment to absorb that fact. He just nodded. Makes sense. Go on. Naruto was floored by Shikamaru's response. He had sort of expected him to reject him, but then Naruto realized this was Shikamaru. He was smart enough to realize what it meant and it would probably be too troublesome for him to shun Naruto, so it didn't really matter. Secondly, I'm the 3rd container of the Kyuubi. The first was the wife of the 1st Hokage and the second was the wife of the 4th Hokage. Shikamaru was more surprised by that fact but suddenly had a grin. Doesn't that mean you were supposed to be the wife of the 7th Hokage? Naruto's eyes bulged. That's not funny, Shikamaru. Shikamaru simply shrugged. Was to me. Naruto shook his head, showing his annoyance, then took a big breath. Finally, I'm the son of the 4th Hokage. Shikamaru gave a real smile. Figured that one out last week. Thanks for confirming it. Naruto's eyes bulged twice as far as last time. How the hell did you figure that out? Shikamaru just shrugged. You look exactly like him. I'm surprised more people didn't figure it out. I was kidnapped at birth and reported dead. It was safer for the Yondame's son to stay that way. Shikamaru nodded sympathetically while Naruto continued. And you have to keep this silent until I get back with this Tsunade lady when they name me Hokage in front of everyone. Shikamaru nodded. Understood. Anything else? Naruto looked around nervously and took a big gulp. I also want your help planning something. Planning what? Naruto's eyes turned purple at the ferocity of the statement, making Shikamaru flinch. He knew immediately why Naruto would want such a thing. He had to let the word sink in. Or on a Togaker. It was 8:55 a.m. at the North Gate and a lone person stood there, the secret goddamn hokage, Uzumaki Naruto. He was only mildly surprised that he was alone. He had expected Jiraiya to be late for this, probably a hangover from his activities from last night, but he expected that guy trained by Danzo to be here already. He leaned against the station house guarded by everyone's two favorite guards, Izumo and Katesu. "So, brat, mind explaining what you are doing right now?" Katesu asked him sternly. Naruto sighed. "Cause I'm heading out with Jiraiya-sensei and some other guy that was trained by Danzo. We are on a mission to find sensei's old teammate, Tsunade." Their eyes bulged. "The legendary Tsunade. How come?" Katesu asked. Izumo gave a little though and grinned. "Is she going to be the new Hokage?" Naruto snickered. "As if. We are getting her for the Hon." Naruto remembered the excuse Jiraiya had told him to use, "We are getting her to make up for all of the medic nins we lost during the invasion." They nodded in understanding. All in all, over 25 high-quality medic nins lost their lives, a huge blow in a village with an admittedly subpar medic training system. "How much longer do you think you will be here?" Izumo asked him. Naruto shrugged. "No clue. It's almost 9 and there is no sight of that guy Danzo sent or of Jiraiya-sensei." Katesu then made a notice. "Hey, didn't you have that awesome nickname for Jiraiya-sama? What was it, Iro-sanin? How come you weren't calling him that?" Naruto nervously laughed. "Well, cause Jiraiya told me that a Hokage has to be professional and stuff and I need a head start on it, right? So what, no more pranks, no more painting the Hokage monument or anything like that?" Izumo questioned him. Naruto had a frown. "I haven't done a prank in months. But yeah, pretty much." Katesu pouted. "Shame. As much of a pain in the ass it was to chase you, you were pretty damn funny kid." Naruto smiled. "Thanks, Katesu-san." A silence filled the air as Naruto looked up at the clock. "It's 9 o'clock, where are they?" "Shin here, Hokage-sama, reporting for the mission." The voice surprised Naruto and made him jump. It also startled Katesu and Izumo. Naruto quickly whipped around. He saw a gray-haired kid, a little older than him, with jet black eyes. He stood a few inches over Naruto. He was in the customary Anbu uniform Naruto had seen on a few of its members and he saw a Fuma shuriken and some type of sword on his back. "Who the heck are you?" "Shin. I was sent here by Danzo-sama." Suddenly, Shin stopped and had to think for a moment. "Honored-san." He tried to cover his earlier mistake and recognizing him as Hokage preemptively. Izumo and Katesu failed to notice the earlier statement and was confused by the second. "Why did you call Naruto honored-san?" Shin gave a forced grin. "Lord Danzo holds him in high regards, thus the name." "What do you think I should call him?" Naruto cut in quickly. "Naruto-san is alright. Just Naruto would be better. I will call you Naruto-san then." "Where is your sensei, Jiraiya-san?" Naruto sighed. "No clue. Probably drunk somewhere, surrounded by girls." Shin nodded. "I will retrieve your teacher from the red light district." With that, he jumped away. Naruto was surprised. "Konoha has a red light district?" Katesu lecherously grinned. "Yeah, and it's really good. For 3,000 Ryo, you can have this one girl who." Izumo bopped him on the head. "Idiot, he is barely 13. He doesn't need to know any of this." Katesu just smirked. "You know the saying, old enough to kill, old enough to fuck, right, Naruto?" Naruto had turned the other direction, muttering something akin to, "Damn perverts everywhere I go." Izumo began to laugh while Katesu shot an annoyed glare at Naruto's back. However, Naruto began to tune them out as he was focused on the conversation he had with Shikamaru the night before. Flashback, or on a Takager? Shikamaru incredulously asked. Naruto gave a nod. "Yeah, cause they are a big threat. They invaded our village once, who is to say they won't again? We should destroy them before they get the chance to hurt us." Shikamaru gave a calculating look. "Then why am I not planning war on Suna? They attacked us too and have before in the past. It would be just as logical, if not more logical, to do so. They were tricked. Their leader was killed." Naruto was quick to defend them. "Orochimaru." Shikamaru simply added. Naruto gave a depressed nod. "Yeah. Him." Shikamaru sighed. "What a drag. I know why you want to do this, Naruto, and it won't work. The Sandaime is dead and will stay dead. I know that." He yelled at Shikamaru, the pain in his voice evident. "I know that." His voice was calmer this time, but still full of pain. "Then why war?" Naruto began to fidget uncomfortably. "Well, Orochimaru made a Togaker, right? So if we destroy it, it will make him a lot weaker since he won't have a village under his control." And what, Naruto?" "I asked Jiraiya why Orochimaru got banished from Konoha. He used to do experiments on people, some really sicko wacko stuff that makes me want to hurl. And Jiraiya said he is probably doing even worse stuff in Odo." Shikamaru nodded. I heard about that too, from my dad. And all of the shinobi, they all support him. They are all loyal to him. They let them experiment on them. Like those guys that tried to kill Sasuke. They are a bunch of sick freaks. Shikamaru got into his thinker's pose. It isn't just to avenge the old man, but save the land of sound from all of their shinobi. Naruto nodded. Yeah, to save them. Naruto quietly added on, but I won't complain if we kill Orochimaru too. Shikamaru could only nod his agreement with such an idea. Then flashback. After that, he gave Shikamaru access to all the information he would need to plan such an invasion war. He talked a little bit more to his counselors and Jiraiya about nothing he thought was that important, ordered about a dozen things of Ichikara ramen to go, and settled in his house to relax and pack. He knew he had to keep becoming Hokage a secret, so he didn't throw the party he always dreamed of. But he also remembered the old man complaining he never got to relax, so Naruto decided to take advantage of the peace. Sasuke promised to keep Sakura away and explain why he was going, so Naruto was all free. All of a sudden he heard a noise. Hi, Naruto-kun. He turned to see a red-faced Hinata. Hey Hinata, what's up? What Hinata wanted to say was, oh, I'm talking to the boy I want to be my boyfriend, so pretty good. Instant Hinata's red got a little deeper as she ignored her bold wishes and began to mumble, well, why you see, she shook it off. And nothing, and Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyebrow rose. Even he knew something was up. What is it, Hinata? You can tell me. She pulled at the hem of her jacket as she nodded. She took in a deep breath. Father is mad since they voted for a new Hokage, and he lost. Didn't W want to train W with him if W was mad. Naruto nodded, understanding. He wouldn't to spar with a mad Sasuke. Though he was annoyed that Hyuga-san did not take his loss well. Naruto was afraid that they might not like him as Hokage, which would be, in Shikamaru's words, troublesome. Well, hopefully he won't be mad for too long. So what are you going to do today? Hinata's face kept up the redness. Train. She turned her face slightly to the ground, as not to look him in the eyes. If you want and then Naruto-kun, you can train with me. She stuttered out a request harshly. She knew Naruto loved to train, and hopefully he would accept. She knew she needed to be bolder to get the wonderful blonde, and this was a great start. It was tough, but Naruto could understand it. He frowned. Sorry Hinata, I would love to, but I have a mission. Shin is getting Jiraiya-sensei, and then we are leaving. Hinata frowned. Who's Shin? I am Shin suddenly popped into a space near Hinata, making her jump slightly, with a large grumpy Jiraiya over his shoulder. Okay, kid, you can put me down. Jiraiya grumbled. Shin promptly let him down, leaving Jiraiya to huff and puff. He was fully prepared, as Shin had given himself enough time to grab his bag and toad summoning scroll, but still mad since he was pulled away quite forcefully from a lovely woman he had met at a bar the previous night. He threw on his bag and scroll, and glared at Naruto. Why the hell did you send him after me? Naruto shook his hands wildly. Not me. He wanted to start the mission, I just told him what you were likely doing. Shin nodded. Yes, enjoying rest after fornicating with an ugly woman wearing lots of makeup. Naruto's eyebrows twitched wildly, Jiraiya nearly died laughing at the social awkwardness of the boy and tamed the rage that came from deep inside of him at the insinuation he would ever be with anything less than a 7. 6 if they're twins, and Hinata came very close to fainting out of sheer embarrassment at the thought. She began to sway, but was quickly caught by Naruto. Hinata realized this, smiled, and fainted out of the simple joy of being in the arms of her crush. Naruto was surprised by this reaction and began to try and shake her awake. Hey Hinata. Hinata. You okay? Hinata. Jiraiya was done brushing himself off and looked at the kid. Come on Gaki, leave your girlfriend alone and let's get going. Naruto let out an odd sound showing his irritation. Hinata isn't my girlfriend. She is just a friend. He looked up to Izumo. Hey, Izumo-san, can you watch over Hinata until she wakes up? And tell her I said bye. Izumo nodded, so Naruto set her against the guard station and got up. Let's get going. Naruto began to take huge steps as he left through the gate behind a grumbling Jiraiya and silent Shin. After a bit of Naruto's awkward marching, Jiraiya became annoyed. Naruto, stop that now. It is really annoying. Naruto stopped entirely confused. What? You're marching, it looks ridiculous. Oh. Whatever then. So where to, Hiro-sanin? As long as he was Hokage, Naruto would not call people by inappropriate name, like Hiro-sanin and team. But until then, he was going to have his fill. To a little town a day's walk from here. It is where we are sleeping for the night. Okay, then. Let's go. Naruto began to run in the direction they were headed, but was suddenly cut off by an odd-looking sword. He turned to see who had the sword, friend or foe, and saw it was Shin. What the hell, Shin? Sorry Hokage-sama, but I did not want you to step in the dog feces. To the point, a pile of dog crap was right in the way of Naruto, right where his foot would have stomped. Naruto wiped his brow. Thanks Shin. You saved me. He stepped around the crap and took a few steps but stopped. He turned to Shin, who hadn't moved. Shin, what did I say about calling me Hokage-sama? It is Naruto, not Hokage, for no on. Shin nodded. Of course, Naruto-sama. Naruto growled. Naruto. Not Naruto-sama. If you really need the honorific, use San. Okay. Shin again nodded. Of course, Naruto he paused, correcting himself, San. Naruto gave a weak smile but decided to let Jiraiya catch up. He let Jiraiya take lead while he followed and Shin covered the back. They quietly walked this way for a few minutes before Naruto began to complain. Hey, Hiro-sanin, you said you were going to teach me stuff. Can you start teaching me stuff? I need to become stronger as soon as possible so I can protect the village. Jiraiya sighed. Calm down, Naruto. I will start teaching you things soon enough. The village we are stopping at is in 7-hour walk, so we should be there a little after 4 p.m. We will be able to begin your training then. And anyway, I need to figure out exactly what I will be teaching you. I want to make sure you actually learn stuff. Naruto gave him a suspicious glance. Really? Or are you just saying that, but you are gonna go watch girls or something? Jiraiya shook his head. No, not this trip. As much as I would love to, the training on this trip is too important to let you do unstructured. A perverted grin was shot off by Jiraiya. Of course, you have Shin to help you sometimes, so I might be able to go off a few times. Naruto ignored the last part. So what are you going to teach me, huh? What? You gonna teach me some awesome jutsus? Jiraiya nodded. Yes, I will be teaching you a few good jutsus. Probably 3 or 4 of them, not counting the big one. The big one? Naruto was asked, liking the sound of it. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, I will also be teaching you a very special jutsu, one that your father invented. Naruto's eyes went wide. A jutsu the 4th Hokage invented. His thoughts on the man may be complicated, but his belief that his dad was a total badass was not shaken. It would be really awesome then. What is it? What is it? Naruto impatiently pleaded. Jiraiya gave him a big grin. The Rasengan. The Rasengan? What does it do? Naruto wondered, thinking it sounded cool. Shin made sure not to look too surprised, but it would be an impressive feat for the future Hokage to master. Jiraiya smirked. Well, I could explain it, but that's boring. It would be better for me to just show you. He motioned for them to follow him off the path and at a tree. Jiraiya took a deep breath out and held out his right hand. Suddenly, a blue ball formed out of thin air, contained in his hand. It spiraled magnificently and one could feel the power emanating from it. Then, he thrust the glowing ball at the tree, yelling out Rasengan. He pushed the ball into the tree, which quickly carved into it, throwing bark and wood out in random directions. And as soon as it started, it stopped, with Jiraiya letting the move dissipate. The tree now had a huge hole in it and was incredibly less stable than it was before. Naruto's eyes were really wide. That move was totally awesome. It kicked so much ass. Even Shin was intrigued. Jiraiya-sama, was that pure chakra? I could not detect any elements in the sphere. Danzo-sama had speculated once in his presence that the deadliness of the move came from the use of elemental chakra infused with it. Naruto's eyebrow rose. Pure chakra? Jiraiya nodded. Yes, it is. In fact, Minato-san could never manage to infuse elemental chakra into the Rasengan, which makes it an incomplete jutsu. Naruto's jaw nearly hit the floor. Incomplete? You mean it could be stronger? Jiraiya nodded. Of course. Even you should realize that elemental chakra is much more powerful than pure chakra. Though this move is very powerful itself already. Shin could not help but fear what a fully recognized Rasengan could do to a human being. Naruto was very anxious and wanted to learn that move now. He held out his hand, trying to summon the chakra. Bits and pieces of chakra began to manifest before Jiraiya grabbed Naruto's wrist. Hold on, Naruto. You just can't go and do this technique. It takes a lot of practice. It took me 6 months to learn it and it took Minato a few years to make it. Naruto frowned. I don't have years. I don't have 6 months. I need to learn it now. Jiraiya shook his head slowly. Calm down, Naruto. You have some time to learn it. This isn't a week-long mission. It will probably take us at least a month to find her, a few days then we have to convince her, then we have to go back. Might take us up to 2 months to finish this, though I'm hoping to less. Shin rose his eyebrow, not expecting the mission to take that long. Lord Danzo had said a few weeks, but Jiraiya was doubling that estimation. He wanted to argue, but Lord Danzo had told him not to draw attention to himself from Jiraiya, so he held his tongue. But if it took you 6 months, how am I supposed to do this in only 2? And what about all those other cool jutsus you are going to teach me? How are we gonna do all that? Jiraiya gave a deep chuckle. Why, that is only the half of it. I still want for you to master the basics katas and taijutsu, introduce you to a new fighting form that I think you are gonna love, help you with all the problems that come from genjutsu, show you a thing or two about seals if I can, and teach you manners and political etiquette. Naruto's jaw dropped. How are we going to do that in 2 months? That sounds like it would take years. Jiraiya nodded. I doubt years, but it would normally take a considerable amount more time than we have right now to teach you all the things I think you need to know before you even think about wearing that hat. However, Kami was kind to us when you choose Kage Bunshin as the jutsu you picked from that forbidden scroll. Hun? What do you mean, Kami was kind to us? I know Kage Bunshin is awesome and all, but how is it going to help us? Naruto naively asked him. Jiraiya grinned. Because, as awesome as Kage Bunshin are, you have only been using them half as well as you could have been. Naruto had a confused look on his face, but Jiraiya continued on. Look, I could talk until I was blue and you still might not get it. So Naruto, summon a Kage Bunshin now. Surprised by the order, Naruto quickly popped one into existence. Jiraiya grabbed the clone by the arm and left to talk in the woods with it, but not before telling both Shin and Naruto to stay. Once he was out of sight, Naruto began to complain. What does that baka know? I use my Kage Bunshin awesomely already, what he can show me about it that will make it any better. Shin knew enough about the jutsu to know what Jiraiya was showing Naruto. Pay attention. You are about to find out. Naruto looked to Shin in confusion and was about to say something when he was stopped by his gaining the memories of the clone, an experience he had ignored previously since it had told him nothing and was thus ignored by his brain. This time, however, the brain registered it. Then Naruto registered it. You damn pervert. What do you mean me and Hinata could make the next great Icha novel? She is a good friend of mine and I won't let your super perverted mind do anything to mess with her. Naruto began to gasp for air after his yell when he realized something. Wait, how did I know what he said? Naruto pondered it for a moment and before Shin could explain, Naruto came to the conclusion himself. Wait, when Jiraiya destroyed my clone, did I get its memories? Shin simply nodded in confirmation. Does that mean I get all of my clone's memories? Shin nodded again. Then why the hell did I notice this before? I used the technique often enough. Jiraiya stepped back onto the road as he began to explain. The mind works in odd ways. If you see something, gaining memories of seeing it any different way are ignored since they conflict with the image currently seen by the eye. However, if the brain gains memories of things it does not see or remember entirely, it will remember these new memories and store them within itself. You have only been using them in the first way, so your brain never picked up on it. But Kage Bunshin no Jutsu was developed as a spy technique meant to get a man on the inside, get the info, dispel, and let the user know everything. Your chakra supply managed to make your version of the Kage Bunshin, an endless stream of foot soldiers, quite formidable. However, these two things will help us a lot. Naruto followed Jiraiya down the road, deep in thought, trying to comprehend what he just learned. So, if I get my clone's memories, I gain everything it knows. Jiraiya nodded as Shin was curious if the boy was capable of figuring this out. Shin had heard, through rumor, that while the boy was quite impressive with on-the-field strategy, he was a dunce in the education department. He thought, perhaps, Danzo knew otherwise than believed the rumors, but Shin was curious who was right. Lord Danzo or the village gossipers. One should never doubt Lord Danzo. So if I train with them, I get their memories? Naruto more asked than anything. Jiraiya nodded. Yes, so you will be able to train in multiple things at once. Naruto grinned. I'm gonna learn everything in a week with the hundreds of clones I can do. Believe it. Jiraiya was quick to dispel that notion. No way. There is absolutely no way I am letting you train with anywhere near that many clones. Naruto was confused. But if I have a lot of clones do stuff at once, I will remember the stuff faster. Jiraiya nodded. Well that is true, thinking that way will get you killed. The brain is very sensitive and cannot handle an overload of information. If you were to have your clone hordes try to dispel all the information they learned, the mental stress would most likely kill you. On top of that, your brain is still developing since you are still growing, so the threshold you can take on a daily basis is far below how many clones you can do. Which is? Naruto asked, somewhat depressed he would not be able to become stronger fast enough to destroy Sasuke when they got back. I would be comfortable with about 10 or so clones learning thing, maybe up to 15 with some of the lighter stuff I'm going to throw at you. Naruto looked depressed, but that was short-lived. Naruto-san, do not look so sad. Even with 10 clones learning everything, you will gain almost 2 years worth of experience in 2 months. Shin logically explained to Naruto. Naruto thought that was awesome, but Jiraiya weakened it. Maybe not 2 years worth with the off days we will do for traveling purposes, but I think the 12 to 15 months worth of experience is still pretty good, don't you agree Naruto? Even with that downgrade, Naruto thought that it was awesome. He couldn't wait to make it to the next town to begin his training. Without warning, he shot off, followed by a neutral Shin and a frustrated Jiraiya. 2 hours after Naruto left and Hyuga Hinata recovered from her fainting spell, Katetsu and Izuma were on a semi-vigilant lookout while having a simple talk between themselves. So, do you think the Uzumaki kid was telling the truth about not getting Tsunade for Hokage? Katesu asked, ever the gossiper. Izumo shrugged. Maybe, but I doubt it. Only thing we know for sure is what the Hyuga girls said, that the Hyuga clan leader lost his bid for Hokage. Who the hell else is there? Sure as hell ain't me. Katesu grinned, since he was in the know. I heard another rumor when I was in the Jounin room yesterday. Apparently, the Uchiha and the Uzumaki kid were invited to the council to pick the Hokage. And they say it was to be character witnesses for Hada Kakashi. Needed someone who had been with him lately. Izumo shook his head. Why do you always slip into the Jounin room? Because that is where the rumors are at. What do you think, copycat ninja as Hokage? Izumo simply shook his head. It would never work. The guy is so laid back he can be used as a part of the road. Not to mention he was so late to his own funeral they rescheduled. Katesu fell on the ground laughing so hard at the joke, totally unexpected from his straight man best friend. Izumo shook his head, trying to get his body off the ground, leaving the gates unguarded for a matter of 10 seconds. It was all Kisame and Itachi needed. They quickly slipped in, the guards meant to stop them or even slow them down, ignorant of their very existence. They donned their hats and walked casually to a tea shop Itachi would frequent before his execution of the Uchiha clan, talking casually along the way. So, what do you think of Konoha? Itachi asked Kisame. Kisame sniffed the air a little bit and blanched. Too many pansies if you ask me. No one's chakra worthy of Samehada. Itachi nodded. Yes, I'm afraid a peaceful village does tend to bring with it some drawbacks. Drawbacks? This village is fatally flawed if you ask me. They did survive an invasion from Orochimaru and the Shukaku. Kisame shrugged. So? You kicked Orochimaru's ass. Though I am glad we are getting this Gaki rather than the Shukaku brat. I don't envy Deidara and Sasori in the least. They casually entered the tea shop Itachi loved and they ordered a calming chamomile. It would soothe them for the hunt. The guy that was supposed to show up and replace Naruto for Team 7's spot while he was on the training trip did not show and it got Sakura angry. She had been confused when Sasuke told her about how Naruto was going to find the Sannin Tsunade with his second sensei, the Sannin Jiraiya. She knew that he had been training with some guy he called a pervert, but a Sannin. Then Sasuke clued her in about how that sensei of Naruto's was a giant pervert who wrote the bane of many women's existence, Icha, and any and all respect for the man left the mind. In all honesty, Sakura began to believe that they deserved one another. Still she was angry at the fact that the new teammate never showed up and began to storm off. When Sasuke asked where she was going, she yelled about super duper late senseis and teammates. She then explained she was heading to Naruto's apartment to yell at him, she was reminded that he wasn't there. Sakura quickly made up the excuse that she was going to prank the prank king and hide all of his precious ramen. Sasuke thought that was harsh and decided to join in on the fun. It would be good to say to his kids about how he pranked the Hokage someday when he is the strongest ninja in the village and had begun to revive his clan. His mind accidentally gave one of his daughters pink hair, ruining the fantasy, so he caught up with his teammate and followed her to Naruto's place. If they had been more observant, they would have noticed the chakra of their new teammate emanating from the tree line. He had decided to observe them on the first day, as he had not really interacted with many people outside of his brother Shin since he began serving Lord Danzo and had forgotten many of the proper ways to act. He had picked up a book on human etiquette and saw a section that suggested giving nicknames to friends to help establish bonds. He didn't get why he just couldn't call them Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno, but the book said it would help them connect, one of the things Lord Danzo had oddly stressed on this extended mission. The ninja finished his shading on the picture he had just drawn of a random duck. He did not know where the inspiration came from, it had just happened. He admired his work of a duck bending over to get food in a pond when he saw it. He noticed that the duck's rear end eerily matched his teammate Sasuke's hairstyle. So should he call him Duckbit? He thought about it but shook off the idea. The book had suggested a playful element to the name and he had realized the Uchiha would not be humored by that name. So he decided to form another, keeping the duck motif. He was searching for a characteristic of a duck to use when he remembered the sound it made. Quack. Could he call him that? It didn't sound right, it sounded too stiff and the book said playful. Quacky, then. Then he turned his attention to the female, Sakura Haruno. She was very loud and quick to anger. Her pink hair stood out and her forehead was noticeably larger than other people's. He wondered what would be a good playful name for her. Harpy, Bubblegum and Billboard came to mind, but they seemed too simple. He wanted it to be unique. Then he thought about the entirety of her and realized he was put back by everything. She was too loud in every sense of the word. She was not attractive to him, though he could understood how some could find solace in her appearance. He was just inherently repelled by her. He came to remember the Chunin exams where he had been among the Anbu who was securing the facility. He saw the fight between the Hokage-sama and the Hyuga branch member and remembered the technique he used to stop all of the Hokage's advances and keep him at bay. Kaiten. He found the other nickname for his teammates. Sai sighed. He wondered what Quacky and Kaiten would nickname him. As they marched up the stairs to the place known as Naruto's apartment, Sasuke couldn't help but laugh. The new Hokage lived in this rather poor section of town. He had been in Naruto's place before and the Hokage's office was just as big as it. He then tried to focus in on the mumblings of his most tolerated fangirl. "Damn Naruto, I'm gonna hide all the ramen in your mattress. I'll cut out the spring and pack it with the ramen. You don't have a bed and your stupid precious ramen will be wasted." Sasuke raised his eyebrow, impressed with the ingenuity of that little plan. If it wasn't for the fact Naruto would end up being moved into some well-guarded and high-end mini-mansion, he would totally back the plan. He would help her anyway, if they were lucky, he would just take this mattress and put it into his new place. And it will hide all the ramen from him when he gets back. He sighed as Sakura began to look from door to door. She turned to Sasuke. "Did Naruto live in 2B or 2C? 2C. Sakura looked at the door. "You sure?" Sasuke nodded. "Remember that stupid song he taught us so we remembered where he lived. It's not very hard you see, I live in little apartment 2C. Sakura remembered that and sighed. Oh yeah. She had bopped him in the head especially hard for his terrible singing. That was the closest she had ever brought him to the hospital, which she was proud of in an odd way. Not that she was hurting him, the baka usually brought it on himself, but that she was strong enough to hurt that orange tank. Knowing Naruto, she reached for the doorknob and turned. As she expected, the door had been left unlocked. Again. She sighed as she swung the door open, muttering to herself, "I swear, he is going to get mugged someday." She looked up and gasped. Sasuke was confused by her gasp, so he walked behind her and looked over her shoulder. Standing there, caught red-handed going through Naruto's personal effects, were two people. Both were wearing odd black cloaks that seemingly consumed the people beneath. The black cloaks were colored by blood-red clouds. The first person's skin was blue, oddly enough, and he seemed to be carrying something on his back. The other was lanky and was actually almost oblivious to the intrusion. Almost. "Hello." The voice was hauntingly familiar to Sasuke. It set him on edge. And that is when the two people looked at their guests. Sasuke knew he was screwed. By any definition of the word, screwed. He saw his brother there, the man he needed to kill, simply 10 or 15 feet away from him. He wanted to make a move to kill him with his Chidori, but it wouldn't work. He was too far away, and if he moved his brother could end him. He knew the curse seal could boost his chakra to help him, but he had to worry about his troublesome teammate to cover and the other man with his demon incarnate brother. He forgot his name, but his skin, size, and sword made it clear to Sasuke that he was one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. And if he recalled, this one was even more dangerous than Zabuza. 2 of the strongest individuals in the world, and they had encountered them breaking into their teammates, the future Hokage's home. His eyes grew wide. Did they know? If his brother was after him for some reason, the dope was screwed. Sasuke thought very hard of a possible escape route from these men, as he knew he would die if he fought them, and fairly quickly too. He had a plan that could work, but it was something out of the Uzumaki playbook, so he went with it. He slammed the door shut and gave into the power of the seal. Jiraiya had grown tired of Naruto's constant begging of teaching him to Rasengan or any other of the cool techniques he was going to learn and had found a basic exercise for him to do. It was simple really, but perfect for Naruto. He had grabbed a leaf off of one of the numerous trees and handed it to Naruto. "Now, we both know your control really sucks. I mean sucks. I know you learned a few things to help it from Kakashi-san and myself, but I want you to a little more practice. I want you to be able to keep this leaf stuck to your hand, no matter how much you move. I don't care if you are swimming, you need to be keeping this leaf stuck to your hand." Naruto whined. "Both that sounds so stupid. Why don't you show me a Kaiten jutsu or something instead?" Jiraiya gave a glance to the boy. "What is chakra made of?" Naruto gave a surprised look. "What?" I said, "Gaki, what is chakra made of?" "It is the mixture of our Shin," began to recite, but Jiraiya stopped him. "Not you, Danzo brat. I meant Naruto. What is chakra?" Naruto went back to his memory bank to remember that information and recall the day when Team 7 had learned how to walk up trees. Chakra is the mix of physical energy and spiritual energy in one's body. He recited from his recollection of Sakura's mini lesson. "Correct. This exercise builds the spiritual energy, which you currently lack. It isn't your fault, spiritual energy takes time to build. To best use one's chakra, one needs a balance of the two. And as far as I know, chakra control exercises like this are the most efficient ways to build spiritual energy." Naruto just nodded, feigning complete understanding. Jiraiya realized this and sighed. "Do it and you will be able to begin learning the Rasengan and you will be able to beat the Uchiha into dust." "Really? Why didn't you say that in the first place?" Naruto grabbed the leaf from Jiraiya and immediately stuck it on his right hand and focused his chakra there. Jiraiya sighed, praying it would keep him quiet. However, the quiet one spoke up. "Is it just me, or does he seem stupid?" Shin stated to the Toad Sage. Jiraiya shook his head. No, he doesn't seem stupid, he is stupid. Hey, I heard that. Get back to work with the leaf, Gaki. Jiraiya yelled back at Naruto. If he is stupid, then why did Lord Danzo wish for him to be Hokage? Shin asked. Jiraiya knew he was on a slippery slope here as he couldn't really say what he wanted to say about Danzo, but he knew the kid wouldn't trust him if he lied. Normally, that didn't matter, but Jiraiya didn't want to let something slip that let Danzo take more control over Naruto than he would get from working with him. I am only telling you these things because you know of his Hokage title, understand? Shin nodded. Naruto here is the container of the Kyuubi, which gives him massive chakra reserves, incredible healing, and sturdiness and stamina like you couldn't believe. He is also the son of the 4th Hokage, giving him lineage. And on top of that, Naruto would die for this village and would protect everyone in it, even the ones he doesn't like. Though I think it is still way too early to make him the Hokage, I really didn't see many other people I would want to be Hokage that hadn't already declined the position, so I ended up voting for him. Shin still didn't understand. But you said it yourself, he is stupid. How can expect him to become anything? Naruto growled, but Shin ignored him. When I say Naruto is stupid, I mean as of right now, hey. But he won't be forever. He can learn, he just never really had focus before now. And Naruto is the type of person who learns through experience really well and not through a book. Kind of like me, haha. Jiraiya chuckled. Shin slowly nodded. I believe I understand. His potential is limitless, it just has not been cultivated, right? Wouldn't it be wise to train him with Lord Danzo, however? He always trains us to our maximum potential. Jiraiya sighed. How was he going to explain this? Your Lord Danzo way of teaching usually involves elimination emotion, am I correct? Shin nodded. Lord Danzo teaches us that emotion will hurt us in the long run as they cloud our judgment. Jiraiya nodded as he figured as much. This will not work for Naruto as he needs his emotions as that is how he best operates. His emotions are his drive to succeed. Taking them away would take away Naruto's drive. And that won't help, will it? I suppose you are right. Shin hesitantly agreed. I know I am. And speaking about knowing, if you are here to help protect Naruto, I think I should get a grasp on your techniques. So, Shin, what fighting style do you use? Black Wolf style, Jiraiya-sama. Black Wolf. I'm not familiar with that style. What does it consist of? Black Wolf teaches us to first disable the limbs of our opponent, forcing our opponent to block with them and be crippled as a result. Then, with the help of devastating punches or kicks, one finishes off a crippled opponent. Sounds brutal. Brutal it might be, but Lord Danzo said he found it most efficient. I see what of your chakra reserves. And your control with them. Upon my examination yesterday to see if I was fit to protect the Hokage-sama, I was judged to have high Chunin chakra reserves, coupled with mid-Chunin chakra control. Quite impressive for a bodyguard. Jiraiya leadingly remarked. Bodyguard? Shin asked, confused until he recalled what his lord had told him. Perhaps, but one would doubt a civilian would attempt to breach Lord Danzo's home. Only an over-arrogant shinobi of some standing would think they would have a chance against us. Jiraiya trained him well, but he was surprised to see that the kid showed a few emotions. He was surprised that Danzo would let an unbroken agent out on such an important mission. What Jiraiya didn't realize was that he needed an agent that could gain the trust of the new Hokage, and an unemotional tool was not up to the task of performing such a mission. What about the sword on your back? Are you any good with that? Shin almost looked insulted. Of course I am. Lord Danzo demands talent with a blade. My talents with the Tanto earn praise from Lord Danzo. My ability to defend is the best among his men. Shin boasted, proud of himself. He knew pride made him weak, but he couldn't help it. It came naturally to him. What about attack? Still quite exceptional. Jiraiya was getting a good feel on the kid's capabilities, but he needed to know more in case the Akatsuki made a move on Naruto. What of your Jinjutsu abilities? Shin frowned. Unfortunately, they are somewhat lacking. I can dispel them, but I only know a few minor ones. Lord Danzo thought it would be better if I worked on my control of my Fuma Shuriken. What do you mean, control on a Fuma Shuriken? Shin had a proud look on his face. I have some talent with chakra threads, and Lord Danzo utilized this by having me learn how to control a Fuma Shuriken completely during its path of flight. I can do the same with Shuriken and Kunai, but it is much more effective with a Fuma Shuriken. Jiraiya was surprised by such a route, but then he realized it was Danzo covering a kid's weakness. He had a strength in close combat, but not in long-range affairs, and his Fuma Shuriken control fixed that. Hate the man all you want, Jiraiya thought to himself, but he makes a complete ninja. What of your ninjutsu? I have a few of techniques I have learned, but most of my training has been on taijutsu and kinjutsu until recently. He was almost apologizing for his focus on such, but Jiraiya was happy enough with the kid. Solid abilities and not a total tool. This kid had hoped to break free from Danzo. If he could only help him along. Damn it, Leaf. Get back here. or a certain blonde gaki. With Sakura out of the picture, Sasuke needed a plan to stall his brother, and the swordsman long enough for the help Sakura was sent to get would come. He figured, out of everyone, Kakashi had the best shot of dealing with him. He knew Kakashi could defeat a swordsman of the mist, and he was also pretty sure Kakashi could hurt Itachi enough so he could go in for the kill with Chidori. He didn't really want to have to get help, but the sooner his brother was dead the better. And every moment Sasuke wasted standing in front of Naruto's closed door was another moment that they could escape. Sasuke then reared back and with a chakra-infused kick, sent the door flying off its hinges at the duo as a distraction. Simultaneously, he threw for 2 kunai at each person, based on where he last remembered them standing. Neither thing worked, as Itachi simply sidestepped the door and the swordsman used his sword to block them. But not working, Sasuke headed for the swordsman. If he could disarm him, he had a better shot of survival. Feinting a punch, Sasuke used the momentum to try to roundhouse kick the sword away. The swordsman easily saw through the feint and plan and caught the roundhouse kick with his foot. He then tried to throw into the wall Sasuke, but Sasuke managed to spin and land on the wall, using the tree walking skills he had learned. Sasuke pulled out a smoke bomb and threw it between the middle of the two, who were mildly surprised by the tactic. He peppered the smoky area with shuriken and jumped in, Sharingan active, into the smoke and began to elegantly swing through the smoke with his last 2 kunai. One for offense, one for defense, he systematically cleared the possible area in the smoke where the two of them could be. By the time the smoke faded away, Sasuke had swiped through it all, getting nothing. He saw the reason why, as both men had jumped out of the smoke. Taking a breath of fresh air, Sasuke glared at the man considered his brother. "Why are you in Naruto's house?" The swordsman laughed. "None of your business, brat." He then took a good look at the kid and was surprised. "Hey, Itachi, how does this brat have the Sharingan? I thought you killed your entire clan." Itachi responded. "No, kiss him, I left one alive. Meet my little brother, Sasuke-chan." Sasuke growled at the name, but was cut off by his observant brother. "And I see my brother has met Orochimaru." Sasuke's eyes flashed in confusion, and his hand subconsciously reached for the seal. "How did you know?" "Sasuke, you are not the first Uchiha Orochimaru tried giving the curse seal of heaven to. He tried a few years ago with me, but I scared him away. I guess he went to the scraps of the clan. I won't be the scraps when I kill you, Itachi." Sasuke growled. Thisam laughed. "Heh, you kill Itachi. That's real likely, brat. You got the same chance of that happening as I do becoming Kazekage. It doesn't matter what you think. Die, Itachi." Sasuke charged his brother and a battle of taijutsu took place. Sasuke tried throwing a punch to the face, but Itachi shifted his head. Sasuke went for a shot with his left to his ribs and Itachi slapped it away. Sasuke went for a kick to his knee, but he just flexed it away from the blow. Sasuke began to throw a volley of blows, aiming for the body or face of his brother. They were all simply dodged, or if to his sternum, Itachi blocked it with a slap. It was all done to humiliate his brother, and Sasuke began to draw chakra from the seal. He then threw a punch to Itachi's chest, but was stopped by Itachi's left-handed slap. Surprising him, Sasuke grabbed the wrist and threw a punch with his other arm. Itachi tried to slap it away, but his right wrist befell the same fate. His hands occupied, Sasuke sent a chakra-infused jumping knee to Itachi's jaw, hoping it would break. As it connected, Sasuke let go of the hands and watched Itachi fly into table, crashing through it. Thisam was surprised by the turn of events, and Sasuke was happy from his success, but his smile fell as Itachi casually stood up and dusted himself off. He spit out a little bit of blood, but otherwise seemed fine. His jaw hadn't been affected much as he began to speak. "Weak, brother. You're still far too weak. I could have killed you at any time. Even when you did get in a blow, it lacked power. You lack hate, little brother. Without it, you will never defeat me." Sasuke growled at the lambasting of his talents and charged in at his brother. He threw his left fist hard at Itachi's face, but he simply caught the fist. Using his superior strength, he made Sasuke buckle to his might. He forced Sasuke onto his knees and had bent back his wrist. "You lack the hate needed to kill me. Perhaps you need a reminder." With that, Itachi activated his Mangekyo Sharingan and caught his little brother into the dreaded Tsukiyomi. He had planned on forcing his brother to relive the massacre of their clan, but before he could begin his torment, Sasuke vanished. Confused, he deactivated his Mangekyo Sharingan and saw a poof of white smoke, which meant that little brother copied Naruto's Kage Bunshin. "This makes things interesting," Itachi told his partner. Kisame grunted. Flashback. After Sasuke let the power of the curse seal activate, he threw his hands together into the clone seal and quietly muttered, "Kage Bunshin no Jutsu." With that, 2 other Sasukes popped into existence. Sakura's eyes went wide. "Sasuke-kun. When did Naruto teach you Kage Bunshin?" Sasuke was a little exhausted from use of chakra and was panting lightly. "He didn't. I copied it in practice by accident. I would use it more, but it takes a lot of chakra out of me. The only reason I can summon 2 and not be wiped is the extra chakra the seal gives me. He turned his clones. You, pointing to the one on his left, go to the hospital and get Guy-sensei. Tell him who's here. He turned to the clone on the right. You, stall. Then he turned to Sakura. Find any of the other jounin you can and tell them my brother and one of the 7 swordsmen are at Naruto's apartment. I am going to find Kakashi. Break. With that, the real Sasuke and his cage Bunshin jumped away, leaving a confused Sakura and the stall clone. He looked annoyed at Sakura for not going. You heard the head. Go and find some jounin who can help. The clone's command brought Sakura back into reality and got her moving. She jumped away, leaving the final clone planning his assault on the deadly duo. Then flashback, but the Sasuke clone. He hopped from rooftop to rooftop, going as fast as possible to avoid any silly fangirls. He looked at the hospital in the distance and kicked it into high gear. The reason he wanted his help was because of how he had managed to train Lee. Lee was a no-talent dope and had been turned into a taijutsu machine. He knew that if Guy had to be much better than Lee and also did not have his limitations with chakra, so he probably knew a few strong jutsus. As he landed in front of the hospital, he made a dash for the front desk. The nurse there jumped in surprise when Sasuke flew in and slammed his hands on the desktop and demanded what room was Rock Lee being kept in. She managed to stutter out the room number and found Sasuke immediately gone from her sight. Lee's room was on the 3rd floor, so Sasuke found the first staircase he could and leapt up them a flight at a time. He flew into the hallway and quickly rushed into Lee's room and was right to see mighty Guy comforting him. Guy greeted him. Ah, Kakashi's most youthful student, how are he was cut off. No time for your stupid youth today. My brother and one of the 7 swordsmen are at Naruto's apartment. Lee, from his bed, was shocked at Sasuke's comment. No time for youth. One must always make time for youth. Right, Guy-sensei. He turned to where his sensei had been, but found air. Guy was already halfway to Naruto's apartment. But Sakura, she was scared. No, scared was back when she had to deal with those Odonins in the Forest of Death. She was petrified. Sasuke's brother? The one that killed his entire clan. And a 7 swordsmen. Like that's Abusa Guy Kakashi defeated. They were in the village. And in Naruto's apartment. Why? She was so filled with questions, she nearly forgot her mission. That was until she was Ino Pig and the rest of Team 10. Realizing they might have their jounin with them, she jumped off the building and landed in front of them to their surprise. Where's Asuma-sensei? She asked them quickly. Not here, what do you need him for? Billboard brow. Ignoring the insult, she turned to the smart one. Do you know where he is? Shikamaru sighed. Probably with teammate at Ichikaru's. They usually go there for lunch. But that information, Sakura left. Ino was frustrated that she couldn't find out what Sakura needed Asuma-sensei for and was very curious how Shikamaru knew where Asuma was. How did you know he would be there, Shikamaru? She almost screeched in his ear. He sighed. Troublesome Hinata gets teammate to eat there so she can watch Naruto and Asuma goes there to watch Kurenai-sensei. Ino was surprised. Why would sensei spy on Kurenai? Daoji stopped his eating as he explained. Same reason you do it with Sasuke, Ino-chan. He likes her. Ino grinned at the new gossip she just learned. Sakura had located Ichikaru's and burst in, scaring those eating there. Asuma-sensei, Kurenai-sensei, Sasuke-kun's brother and one of the 7 swordsmen are at Naruto-san's apartment. But that news, both left like a rocket. Ichikaru wasn't even going to complain about them skipping out on their tab as he was worried about Naruto too. He had fed enough ninja and heard enough stories to know how dangerous both men must be. If he was worried, there wasn't a word for Hinata's feelings. She was quivering in fear for her precious Naruto-kun. They were after him. Why were they after Naruto? The only thing that kept her from going hysterical was her knowledge and his safety out of town and with a Sannin. But the real Sasuke, he needed to get Kakashi-sensei. He would deal with the swordsman. And whoever Sakura got would help. I was so fast, Itachi could catch him with the Sharingan. He would hurt him, bad. Then Sasuke would kill him. It wasn't the way it was supposed to happen, but it was the way it would happen. Itachi would die and his clan avenged. He headed to the spot where he figured Kakashi lingered for hours and was the reason he was always late. He headed to where they had became genin and to the memorial stone they were shown. He was right, Kakashi was there. Sensei, I need you help. Kakashi turned to Sasuke and saw the mark active. Sasuke, what did I say about us? He was cut off. Itachi's here. With one of the 7 swordsmen. At Naruto's apartment. Kakashi let the curse of heaven go as he leapt to Naruto's apartment to cut off the duo. So, he thought to himself, Akatsuki is making its move. He had learned about the group from Jiraiya last night and when you combined the fact he was Hokage, it was a shitstorm waiting to happen. No time to lose, then. He told himself and he went full speed to the apartment of his sensei's son and precious student. Sasuke was quick to follow, as he did not want to miss the chance of killing his brother. The memory of his clone hit him then, and his fight with Itachi was the thing he focused on. He had called him weak. He had acted like it was nothing. He was going to show him nothing. The dark haze of chakra surrounded him as the seal's power came into full force. Isam was not amused by the situation in the least. He had actually lost a little respect for his powerful partner. You let yourself get hit by a cage bunshin, Itachi-san. How pitiful. Itachi didn't directly respond. That was meant to test his skills. If he could perform that jutsu, perhaps he isn't as weak as I thought. Isam shrugged and looked around. Anyway, the brat isn't here. Should we check the training grounds this shithole has to offer, or what? Itachi shook his head. No doubt, the pink-haired girl and the real Sasuke went to get reinforcements. Isam let out a chuckle. So? All they would be is a meal for Samehada. Itachi sighed. Believe it or not, Kisame, a handful of Konoha's top jounin can harm us. And if they manage to retrieve the Toad Sannin, then I fear one of us may not make it out alive. I think it would be best for us to depart. Isam glared at Itachi. You're no fun. With that, they jumped out of the window and began to speed to the borders of Konoha. So, how are we going to handle this? Will we tell the leader that we failed because you got cold feet? Kisame asked Itachi. No. We should hide around the border of Konoha for a few days. Our presence may lead to them evacuating the Jinchuriki with a few guards. Then, we will take out said guards and snatch him. If they send out the Toad Sannin however, I believe we should head back to the base. He will understand my reasoning. Isam sighed. Then I really hope this Gaki doesn't get the royal treatment. Samehada is getting hungry. Stop. The loud command made them pause out of surprise of the command and turn to where it was from. Behind them was Kurenai, with Asuma right behind her. It was obvious to Itachi that they had been spotted. If he had been born in Nara and not in Uchiha, he would no doubt call this situation troublesome. Uchiha Itachi, you are under arrest for the massacre of the Uchiha clan. Please come with us quietly, or else your life will be forfeit. Asuma commanded, glaring at the Uchiha. Isam laughed. You think catching us will be that easy? Asuma nodded his head. Actually, Shark Man, I do. There is a pause and a smile. From behind them they hear, demonic illusion. Tree binding death success. So, boys, how does it feel like knowing you are about to die? Isam's earlier laugh turned into a roar. Kurenai was very confused. Why are you laughing? Without explaining, he swiped Samehada in front of Itachi and Itachi let out a sigh. He turned around to look at Kurenai. Kisame's sword is very special. In short, it consumes chakra. This naturally disturbs the flow of one's chakra, making him immune to all Jinjutsu. Since he took a bit of my chakra with that swipe, he disrupted the Jinjutsu placed on me. And again, Jinjutsu on an Uchiha is very foolish because of our Sharingan. With that, his black eyes began to twirl straight to a version of Sharingan she didn't recognize. So, Jinjutsu mistress, let me show you a real Jinjutsu. Tsukiyomi. Suddenly, Kurenai found herself in a black and white world. Her first action was to try and release the Jinjutsu, but it failed. She tried again, pumping in more chakra, and that failed to do anything. She finally decided to try and reverse the Jinjutsu, using a high-level technique she had been allowed to learn from the Scroll of Seals, the same scroll Naruto had taken to learn the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. There wasn't even a slight distortion in the world, showing that this powerful technique had no effect on whatever technique Itachi had placed Kurenai under. Incredible, how is this possible? She murmured to herself. Because, Kurenai-san, she jumped as she heard the voice behind her. It was Itachi, standing menacingly a few feet away. This is the true power of the Sharingan. You are in my world now. For the next 72 hours, you are under my power. With those words, he mysteriously vanished and she found herself strung up to a cross. Struggling to break free, she nearly didn't notice the four people standing in front of her. She caught them out of the corner of her eye and was shocked to see Hinata, Kiba, Shino, and Asuma in black and white. Asuma stepped up first, smoking his cigarette. He blew out some smoke and sighed. Why the hell would I ever go out with an ugly bitch like yourself? With that, he took his cigarette and pressed it against her forehead, causing her to nearly yell out. He faded from existence, and the next to step up was Shino. He looked at her from behind the cold sunglasses he always wore as a swarm of Kikai bugs left him. You are a useless sensei. Why do you ask? Because you can teach us nothing and only hinder our growth. Your existence is beyond me. With that, the swarm converged on her, filling her mouth, nose, and ears, and latching onto every exposed piece of skin. She wanted to yell, but it would only make it worse as the bugs crawled inside and on her. She felt the chakra being drained and the many tiny nips of the omnivorous bugs pecking at the soft flesh in her nose, her ear, and in her throat. Finally, the sensation left her, letting her cough aloud to try to remove the feeling that had developed. She looked up, seeing Kiba as her next tormentor, with Akamaru wearing a sinister grin on his shoulder. He walked up to her, smiling and turned to Akamaru. I think I found where you could use the bathroom. That is all she is good for. But that, Akamaru raised his legs and let out a jet stream of urine onto her face. It shot up her nose and into her mouth, gagging her and making her try to spit it out. She blinked it out of her eyes and saw Hinata look very determined. Before she could do anything, a seal lit up on the ground beneath them. You are within my range, Hinata started saying, Haki Sunjuni Sho. With that, she began to call out the strikes she landed on Kurenai. 2 palm. 4 palm. 8 palm. 16 palm. 32 palm. When the last blow hit, Kurenai fell off the cross. She managed to raise her head, looking at her student wearing an uncharacteristic Hyuga facade for her. She tried to reach out to her beloved student, but that caused the facade to break and her beginning to sob. Why didn't it work? That should have paralyzed you. Why can you move? Kurenai felt heartbroken and tried to comfort Hinata, but got nothing. Father was right. I am weak. I'm useless and I will always be useless. Kurenai had gotten to her knees and Hinata was within her reach when Hinata backed up suddenly and pointed an accusing finger. Why did you lie to me? You swore you would help me. You would make me strong. You would prove my father wrong. But you are a liar. I'm still weak. You lied to me and failed me. Kurenai finally found her voice. Hinata-chan, I wouldn't lie to you. You aren't a failure. She heard a loud sniff. Liar. I'll turn out just like her. Her? Who's her, Hinata-chan? Kurenai asked. Hinata pointed behind her and Kurenai had a blast from the past. Then she saw the picture that blast had drawn and, in a flash, everything went black to her. She woke up breathing heavily, looking around and found nothing, relief. Don't worry, Kurenai-san. We still have 71 hours, 59 minutes and 59 seconds. Itachi's voice led to appearances of her team and Asuma, their looks the same as before. Damn it, why can't I get this stupid leaf thing to work? Jiraiya sighed aloud. Again. He really wish his new apprentice would just shut up. Thankfully, Shin came to the rescue. Because, Naruto-san, you are becoming angry. That anger draws some of the Kyuubi's chakra from its seal, which messes with the entirety of your control. If you would relax and calm down, you would find this exercise to be easier. Also, using shadow clones would help you understand the exercise more easily. If you recall what Jiraiya-sama explained to you earlier, you gain the experiences of your clones. But that, Naruto nodded. Thanks Shin. You just might be a better sensei than Iro-sanin over there. He took a deep breath and let himself relax. He threw up his signature crossing of the fingers and proclaimed. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Into existence popped a dozen clones. The boss began to organize his workers. Now, go get leaves and perform the exercise, alright. The chorus of highs were heard and a dozen pairs of footsteps were heard rushing to the nearby trees. The real Naruto quickly caught up to Jiraiya. Now, Iro-sanin, since my clones are doing the exercise, you can start teaching me that awesome Rasengan thing you showed me, right? First of all, call me Iro-sanin again and I will turn us back around and let Abisu-san teach you on this trip. Secondly, I don't have the tools necessary to teach you it right now. Naruto was curious. What tools do you need to teach me that, I mean Jiraiya-sensei? He didn't want to be taught by Iro-sensei, so he would have to suck it up. We will need water balloons for the first step. Jiraiya simply told him. Water balloons? Naruto questioned him. Jiraiya simply replied. Water balloons. Naruto shook his head, wondering how the hell water balloons would teach him an awesome jutsu like that. He turned to this other traveling companion, Shin, and asked. Hey, Shin, can you teach me something? You are an awesome sensei and all. Jiraiya shook his head, knowing they were only 2 hours from town. What could the boy possibly pick up by himself in 2 hours? He had obviously forgotten how long Naruto had to learn Kage Bunshin. Shin simply began to tap his chin as he walked. I think I know the perfect jutsu to show you if Jiraiya-sama doesn't mind my intrusion of teaching his student. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow, unsure of what Danzo's kid was thinking, but he figured it wouldn't hurt. Sure, kid, you can show the Gaki something. Naruto grinned. He was going to learn an awesome jutsu. So, what are you going to show me, Shin? A very simple jutsu, one that I believe, with your large chakra reserves, you will be able to perform in no time. Yeah, which one? Shin suddenly put his hands and formed the ram seal and disappeared behind a puff of smoke. As the smoke dispersed within a matter of seconds, Naruto saw nearly a quarter mile up the road Shin. Naruto's eyes went wide in surprise as he ran to catch up with him, catching up to him in a minute or so. How did you move so fast? Shin took a few breaths, going much farther than he had planned, and explained. I used Shunshin no Jutsu. Shunshin no Jutsu? Body flicker. Huh? Naruto asked. Shin began to explain. Using the ram seal to generate chakra within your body, you disperse it to every inch of your being, allowing yourself to move at incredible speeds. You can go further depending upon how much chakra you use to enhance yourself. This is superior to simply enhancing chakra in your legs and arms since it allows for a smooth burst of speed. As you can see, it allowed me to move at a rate almost impossible in any other sense. Many people who see it confuse it as teleportation or only see a flicker of body movement before the person reappears elsewhere. The puff of smoke is used to disguise one's movements, allowing more time to escape from an unfavorable situation or repositioning oneself for an attack. Naruto nodded his head, understanding. A little. So I use the ram seal so chakra fills my body and then I move really fast to dodge things or to move. He asked Shin. Jiraiya had already caught up. A gawky way of explaining it, but yeah, pretty much. Cool. With that, Naruto formed the ram seal and began to generate the necessary chakra. Shunshin no jutsu. He called out, though he really didn't need to, and his body flickered. 5 feet. He turned, looking around, and saw how far he had gotten. Damn it. I thought I would have gone farther. He threw his hands into the ram seal and called out the jutsu's name again. He flickered again. 5 feet 2 inches. Progress. Shin sighed. At least he is able to perform the absolute basics of it. Jiraiya nodded. Maybe, but the gaki is going to be doing that the entire time we are walking. Thanks a lot, Shin-chan. He finished in an irritated tone, which didn't escape Shin. Sorry, Jiraiya-sama. He said as he jogged to catch up to the toad sage. Behind them, a dozen Narutos obliviously tried sticking leaves to their hands, some succeeding, others failing horribly. They all, however, failed to notice the chakra coming from the pair of beady yellow eyes, watching the dozen Narutos from the coverage given to him by the undergrowth. Earlier that morning, the 3 members from the Sandame's old council and the newest member of the Godame's council were unaware of the Uchiha's presence in Konoha, but it was unlikely that they would be aware of it until the events were over. Even Danzo's root members would be unable to reach the secure location the 4 were sitting, the oldest 3 on one side of the table, a few folders beside them, the youngest across from them, looking bored out of his mind. The Haru cleared her throat, attracting the attention of Shikamaru from his daydream. I bet you are wondering why we have brought you here to this secure location, Nara-san. Nara looked around to the metal room with only one door, locked from the inside so no one may enter. He noticed the seals on the corner of this room, signifying strong barriers from both sound and any other chakra. This room was impenetrable. It was quite impressive to the Nara if he was bothered to think about it. Not really, Elder Sama. He sighed, lying only because it was simpler. Well, it wasn't really lying if you were 99.99862% sure of why they were here, now was it? The Haru frowned. This, Nara-san, is the ultimate result of a need of privacy. This is the silent room, called this because the seals placed in here keeps it absolutely silent to the outside world. Amura finished the explanation. Also because anything spoken in this room stays in this room. The matters discussed here may not be discussed anywhere else in the world besides here and the Hokage's office with full seal activations on. Understand, Nara-san. Shikamaru nodded. Yeah, how troublesome. Basically, what we say in the room, stays in the room. Don't worry, it would be too troublesome to tell anyone anything anyway. Danzo observed this Nara, this very distant relation from his mother born decades before, and inwardly smirked. He knew of Nara men, and this boy was the epitome of them. The smartest and laziest Nara alive, one of the saddest contradictions in the shinobi world. Danzo knew if he could harness the drive of an Uchiha or of any ninja really who wished to succeed and an intelligent Nara, greatness was born. That was, of course, how he came into being. Nara-san, Danzo began, we have brought you to the silent room to initiate with you the secrets that are for the eyes of the Hokage and his council exclusively. Do you understand? Shikamaru was tempted to say no and ask if he could leave, but he couldn't do that. Besides needing to help Naruto plan war on Itachiger, he needed to help Naruto from making decisions that would hurt Konoha. Shikamaru, hidden underneath his slothful exterior, burned the heart of a shinobi loyal to Konoha, one that wanted to make sure Konoha would be at its best. And the best way to do this would be to make sure Naruto doesn't screw it up. Yes, I understand. The 3 elders nodded to each other and handed Shikamaru the first folder. This folder, Hamura explained, lists the names, codenames, rank and experience of every past member of Anbu, active or retired, deceased or alive. Shikamaru flicked it open, reading through the many names, and wasn't surprised by any of them. These were the elite of the village, and their records showed it. He spent a few minutes going over the names before he closed the folder. Next. He simply stated as he put the folder down and slid it back to the elders. Amura and Kaharu were slightly offended by the bluntness of Shikamaru, but they did not let it show. Kaharu took the next folder and slid it over to Shikamaru. It was thicker than the first, which wasn't not especially thin. This is an in-depth map of Konoha, the most detailed map built, showing every tunnel, every ditch, every house, every shack, everything of Konoha. If it were to fall in the wrong hands, Konoha would fall. Shikamaru tried to not let the drastic statement get to him, even though he knew it was right. If he had this type of map of a Tokage, it would be child's play to take it over and ruin Orochimaru's little village. He reviewed the map for nearly 15 minutes, trying to burn it into memory offhand. It would be troublesome, but it would be worth it. He would be able to always find a hiding spot from his mother Ino when he wanted to watch the clouds. Shikamaru had it committed to memory and nodded to the trio, indicating he was done with looking over the map. Danzo had to admit, even though he didn't want this kid anywhere near him and his plan, he would have made one of the finest members of Root, possibly greater than Fu. His intelligence and abilities were incredible, off the charts even by Danzo's standards. He only wished he had known sooner about his potential. It was not the first time Danzo had admitted that to himself, and he knew it would not be the last. This continued on for nearly a half hour, as secrets were revealed to Shikamaru, and he was quick to absorb them. They reached the final folder in the pile, and it was the only one that was sealed. The Haru placed her hand firmly on this folder. "You have accepted everything you have learned today in great stride, Nara-san, and we are almost done. The only thing left is this." Shikamaru raised his eyebrow to how she said that, but that was the only betrayal of his interest. "This folder," Danzo began to explain, "contains things that you may find unpleasant or deeply wrong. You will almost certainly not like what you find here, but you must swear on an oath of death to never discuss this outside of the 2 designated areas." Shikamaru was surprised at how serious this was and decided to up his game to be so as well. "I swear on an oath of death to never discuss what I read in that folder outside of the 2 designated areas." He quickly repeated, wanting to get the process over with. Amura nodded, taking the sealed folder from Kaharu and unsealed it. He placed it in front of Shikamaru, who was quick to read the title page of this document. Anbu X. Kurenai was utterly exhausted. She had been under this genjutsu for who knows how long, being tortured by her team, her crush, and her greatest failure. Each time they came, it seemed like a new insult was formed to demean her, and she was close to cracking. "You have held up fairly well, Kurenai-san. But you still have 29 hours, 44 minutes, and 7 seconds left. I wonder if you can last." The disembodied voice of Itachi Uchiha continued to haunt her as the next round of insults haunted. "Sorry Kurenai, but I don't sleep with the village whore." Her hair was chopped off by Asuma's trench knives. "You will always be a failure, Kurenai." "Why, do you ask?" "Because you cannot escape such a simple genjutsu like this. You are worth less than my Kikai's excrement." To her horror, his swarm covered her with their filth. The smell made her want to gag. "Do you know what they do to useless bitches, Kurenai? They put them to sleep." Twin Gitsugas were unleashed, smashing into her chest. "It hurt so much," Kurenai thought to herself. "I wish I could die, or that I was asleep and this was just some horrible dream." Suddenly, the keyword asleep gave her an idea. If it worked, then she could escape this hell. But it all came down to timing. "Kurenai, you are worthless. If you had done anything for me, I could have been with Naruto-kun. Now I must marry him." The shadow of a fat ugly pig of a man came into view as Hinata sent half a dozen blows directly to Kurenai's chest. She was released from the cross and knew she only had 2 or 3 seconds before she killed her. She threw her hands together and formed a ram sign. Weakly she called out her possible saving grace. "Tanuki Nari no Jutsu." Just like Gaara had a few days before, Kurenai fell asleep before the strike could land. Itachi was impressed by Kurenai. Not only had she survived his Tsukiyomi technique, she escaped from it using a sleep-inducing jutsu. He made a note of that for future reference. He looked up at the battlefield and saw an asleep Kurenai at his feet, and his partner Kisame was already in a battle of the blades with Asuma. Trench knives met with the Samehada, Asuma being careful not to infuse chakra. It appeared Itachi made a mistake in explaining how the Samehada worked. No matter to him. He was going to join fray and incapacitate his opponent when a green blur stood in front of him. He recognized that bowl cut from anyway. "It is good to see you again, Gai-san." He could see, despite not seeing his face, the flash that accompanied a Gai grin. "Ah, Itachi. I see you remember me." "Of course, Gai-san. You are quite the memorable person. Pity I have to beat you. No, I would rather like to catch up." He could feel the switch in Gaida's seriousness. "Do not take me for a fool, Itachi." "Now, what were you doing in Kakashi's precious student's home?" "My job," was Itachi's response. But that guy let out a quiet growl, not liking where this was going. He decided to take this moment to attack, coming full speed at Itachi. He kept his head down, watching Itachi's hips, knowing the danger of the Sharingan from his many battles with Kakashi. He saw a slight shift to his left, so he threw a kick, only to get air as Itachi ducked under it. He tried to follow up with a roundhouse kick, but that failed to connect. He looked around, finding Itachi, and charging full steam at him. He threw a punch and was satisfied to have it hit skin. However, the skin popped into smoke, making him realize it was a cage bunshin. Realizing the flaw and watching only up to his hips, he changed his game plan for it to be to his shoulders. He focused his senses and felt the chakra gathering behind him, so he jumped out of the way of the incoming fireball. He quickly found Itachi from it and kept his eyes locked to the upper half of his body. This was going to be a tough fight, Guy quickly realized, with his inability to look at anything near eye level or be caught in the Sharingan. But he knew, with his power of youth, he would defeat this traitor where he stood. On Asuma's side of things, he couldn't help but feel toyed with. It seemed like the swordsman was barely trying with his mighty sword, as if he pitied trench knives he was using. Enough was enough for Asuma, as he had a plan. He managed to force Kisame into an overhead strike with the sword, and Kisame was surprised to see that Asuma only used one trench knife to block the sword. He could feel the chakra being drawn into his sword, and he almost smiled. However, he remembered the other trench knife and decided to jump back in order to avoid being stabbed. He thought he had been clear of the knife by a good foot when Asuma slashed it, but he still felt the cut near his lower abdomen. He was confused by how he got hit until he saw the trench knife and the green chakra dissipating from it. Wind chakra, Kisame thought to himself. He decided to start getting serious since he knew wind chakra was basically a long-range sword. And when it came to swords, he would always win. He flashed his hands together and made the necessary seal. Mizubunshin no Jutsu. With that, 3 Kisames formed around him. Asuma's eyes went wide in surprise. How did you do that? There is no water around her for Suten Jutsu. The real Kisame flashed a grin. A true shinobi makes do with the environment. There is water all around us, in the air we breathe. I merely collected it together to get the water necessary. Without orders, the 3 Kisames went on the offensive. Desperate, Asuma loaded his trench knives with his wind chakra and let a devastating slash erupt from his blades. 2 of the Kisames were caught by the powerful attack, while the final jumped in the air. He brought his sword down on Asuma, expecting to knock him out with such a powerful blow. Asuma knew his trench knives would be no match against such an attack, so he went into his collection of ninjutsu. Flashing through the signs as quickly as he could, he let his hand hang on the snake seal. Futen. Tatapa. With that, a great gust of wind forced the Mizubunshin away from him. It landed hard on the tiles of the roof, releasing into a puddle of water. Unperturbed by his weak clone's lack of success, Kisame flashed through some more hand signs. Obviously, the monkey over there saw a fight with the blades would not be to his favor, so he was going to put some distance between them. Kisame could care less, he would annihilate the man in front of him. He wasn't the monster of the hidden mist for nothing. Suten. Sukuden no Jutsu. Kisame called out, and the water from the failed Mizubunshin collected together, along with other water in the air, to form a small, but ferocious shark. Grinning, he thrust his hands forward, ordering the shark to attack Asuma. The Mizu shark was happy to oblige, as it barreled towards Asuma. Asuma flashed through the hand signs of his Futen. Tatapa technique and unleashed it towards the shark. The power behind the jutsu, however, overcame the lesser gust used meaning to deflect it, and it attacked Asuma. It tried to clench its jaws around his legs and actually had a hold of his left leg. Asuma was near panic, but he tried to keep his cool as best as he could. Before the shark could rip off his leg, Asuma thrust both trench knives into the skull of the Mizu shark, forcing the technique to cancel. Asuma inspected his leg immediately, evaluating the damage. He was relieved to see it did minimum damage to his leg muscle and avoided all of the major arteries. He could survive the attack if he could escape from the man in front of him. But just like a true shark, Kisame smelled the blood and let out a feral grin. As he stalked towards his prey, however, 2 figures got in his way. He was quick to recognize both. So I see the little Itachi and the copycat ninja have come to play. His grin purposefully terrifying. Sasuke growled at the insult, but Kakashi was quick to call orders. Sasuke, get Kurenai-san and Asuma-san to safety. But Kakashi-sensei, Itachi Kakashi cut off his pleading student. Do what I said, Sasuke. There was a brief stare down, but Sasuke was quick to retrieve both Asuma and Kurenai, both of them over his shoulder. He jumped a bit away to a nearby building and placed Asuma and Kurenai down on the ground. Before Asuma could say anything, Sasuke left the duo to rejoin the battles. Asuma sighed and looked at the unconscious figure next to him. It was cruel to see the woman he was in love with in such a state. He held her close to him as he waited for someone who could get them to a hospital. I was becoming very frustrated with Itachi. Though Guy knew that they were both shinobi and deception was the name of the game, he still found Itachi's tactics most unyouthful. He had avoided almost any confrontation to jutsu-wise, and if they did do battle, it was with a shadow clone that he had managed to summon. He would send murders of crows at Guy, forcing him to dodge. He would throw fireballs at him, keeping him at bay and putting his hair at risk. Most unyouthful indeed. Though he didn't like the concept, he would have to resort to ninjutsu to help in this battle. If only for tracking purposes. He bit his thumb, drawing blood, and flashed through a few hand signs. Kuchiyus no Jutsu. With the call, a puff of smoke surrounded Guy. Around him, 4 tortoises, each coming to his knee and roughly a 3.5-foot diameter. Each looked towards Guy, somewhat surprised they had been summoned. "Ah, my youthful tortoise allies, I need your help. I am battling a most unyouthful man named Itachi Uchiha." The eldest of the tortoises looked surprised. "And Uchiha, I thought they were gone." I nodded. "Hi. And he is the reason. I need you to be my eyes, since you can simply dispel if he catches you in anything. Understand?" A chorus of highs reached his ears. Then let the power of youth explode. With that, Guy activated the first of the 8 inner gates and rushed forward faster than before. Dynamic action. With the tortoises telling him everything he needed to know, he began to unleash a fury of punches and kicks at Itachi. It was the real one, as he felt 3 punches and 2 of his kicks connect. He made a grab for his robe and grabbed the black with red cloud cloak. He used it to wrap it securely around Itachi, making sure he had no place to go. He then, with his impressively boosted strength, jumped high in the air. He and Itachi flipped upside down, and Guy Pillar drove him into the ground, calling out Amit Renge as he broke through the roof and top floor of the building they had been fighting on. Guy had been protected by the attack cranially, since he reinforced his hair with chakra to act like a helmet, but the person he was holding didn't have such luck. The tortoise, Nintaku, was knocked out cold and poofed out of that plane. He must have substituted himself with one of my tortoises. The fiend. With that, he jumped back up to where the fight was and saw Sasuke charging, Chidori in hand towards his brother. Using the last of his power boost from opening up the first gate, he bellowed dynamic entry expecting his foot to crush Itachi's face. Sasuke saw his brother among a trio of tortoises, not looking in his direction and grinned to himself. He dropped his hand and charged at his brother, the purple lightning caused by the curse seal surrounding it. "Die, Itachi," he yelled, expecting to impale his brother. However, Itachi turned around at the yell and caught Sasuke's hand a few inches away from his chest. "Foolish little brother. You might have hit me if you had said nothing. You are still far too weak to ever hope to kill me. Perhaps you need a reminder." Itachi revved up his Sharingan to Mangekyo Sharingan, expecting to put Sasuke into the world of Tsukiyomi, even though he already used it once that day. However, he noticed the foot of Guy flying towards him and prepared to dodge and was startled to see he couldn't move. He quickly noticed his bound shadow and saw it drawn from Shikamaru. The Nara mouthed something to him and he was sent flying by the force of the kick. Itachi knew when things were not in his and Kisum's favor at the moment. "Kisum." He called out to his partner, who was in the process of dodging a fireball. "What? Retreat plan 6. What? But I'm barely breaking a sweat. Soon, the numbers game will overwhelm us. The village's shinobi are too aware of our presence. We must leave while the fight is in our favor." Kisum grimaced and turned to Kakashi. "You don't know who lucky you are, copycat." With that, he formed the ram seal and shunshed it away. Itachi was already gone. They were alone. Sasuke was furious at missing the chance to kill his brother and went to run off after him, but he was caught. Allowed to move somewhat, he realized it was Shikamaru holding him back. "Let me go, Nara." "You don't want to do that, Sasuke." "Let me go, Nara." Sasuke roared, but Shikamaru kept him still, using all his concentration, so Sasuke didn't make the mistake of following them. Kakashi sighed at how his student was still obsessed over his brother, and Guy was furious that his fight with the older Uchiha had ended because of a most unyouthful retreat. Shunshin no Jutsu. A puff of smoke appeared where Naruto had been standing, and a few seconds later he reappeared 500 feet in front of them, at the gate of the town they were staying at. Naruto gave a huge grin. "I did it. I learned the jutsu." Shin nodded. "I'm impressed." He did learn it. Jiraiya huffed. "Maybe, but he shouldn't have to yell the name out to do the jutsu." He called out to Naruto in front of him. "Gaki. Dispel your clones that we left behind. No point of leaving them out there." With a quick nod, Naruto did so. He blinked his eyes rapidly as memories of learning the leaf exercise came to him. His head didn't hurt too badly, it just felt like he had crammed for a few hours before the Genin exam. Nothing too bad. "Okay, so let's get some water balloons so I can learn that super awesome jutsu, Rasengan." Naruto proudly exclaimed, causing Jiraiya to facepalm. "Damn, Gaki's gonna be the death of me." Shin smiled. "Yeah, but at least he is willing to learn." Jiraiya let out a sigh. "Yeah, that is a good thing. He's going to have to learn fast, or else it's game over for him." What if Naruto was strongest Hokage Council bashing? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.